Okay, today is February 18th, 2015. It is 7:08 p.m. We'll call to order this meeting of the Brattleboro Developmental Review Board. It is nice to have a full board, and I know some of you out there were waiting for it, so we're happy to provide that for you. I don't know how many of you are here for your first meeting, but every meeting we begin with remarks that are the same. And I'm going to go through those now. Those are meant to orient you to what the board does, how it does it, and what to expect tonight. At the DRB, we hear applications for land development in the town of Brattleboro and appeals of zoning administrator decisions. Procedurally, the Developmental Review Board operates on the record. Broadly, this means that we take a clear record of testimony from the applicant and any interested parties, and then issue a written decision with our findings. Applicants and members of the public should be aware that as we are on the record, this is your opportunity to comment on and provide evidence relating to an application. In the event our decision is appealed to the Environmental Court, the court will not take or consider additional testimony or evidence at its hearing, but will look at the evidence from our hearings, the regulations or the appropriate law, and determine if the evidence from this hearing supports the findings and decision of the board. Only interested persons that participate in this proceeding tonight may appeal a decision made by the board to the Environmental Court. So I strongly encourage all of you to speak up at this hearing. As we are on the record, we're going to ask that you affirm your testimony will be truthful. This is what we call going under oath. So if anybody, certainly if you're an applicant, but if anybody thinks they may speak tonight, I'm going to ask that you stand and I'm going to put you under oath. So if you think there's a chance you might want to talk about any application, stand up. Or if you're an applicant, you've got to stand up and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll give in the cause under consideration will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Okay. Now, if you did not stand and you later decide that, you can all sit down, sorry. If you don't stand and you later decide, geez, I really want to talk about this application, but I didn't go under oath, I can't keep track of everybody because we've got a relatively big crowd here. These guys try to keep me honest, but if you weren't sworn in, even if what you say is very relevant, you're not on the record. You need to be under oath. So tell me if you weren't sworn in, but you then want to talk, and have yourself considered. Otherwise, you don't get on the record. Otherwise, what you say can't be considered as part of the record here or on appeal. Applicants require a majority vote of the full board to succeed. That means 4 votes out of 7. If we do not have a full board present to hear your application, which obviously is not the situation tonight, then we will consider a request to continue your application to the next public meeting. After taking testimony, the board will close the public hearing and may vote on your application. The board will issue a written decision within 45 days of the close of the hearing. While we may vote on an application, it is the written decision that controls the timeline for appeal. It should be noted that the town of Brattleboro is a party with an interest in land development applications. The town does not have special status before this board. Documents provided to the board by the town planning department, the town attorney, or other town departments will be considered in exactly the same way as information from the applicant or from other interested parties that are here tonight. I'll further note, I don't know how many people in the audience know this, but we have a number of new board members tonight. And I'll probably do a lot of things that are embarrassing and slow us down, like forget their names and forget how to correctly appoint alternates sequentially in each application, because we haven't had alternates for about, I don't know, 6 months, which is coincidentally about how long I've been chair. Please bear with me. I'm trying to ensure that the procedures we use are correct and not trying to slow down your applications. One other note, because we have new members, on each application we go through tonight, we're going to have deliberative session. What that means is once the evidence is on the record, we're going to take a brief break and go into a separate room and talk about each application. The goal of this is so that the new members of the board are comfortable. We just did a brief orientation meeting, but we want to make sure their voices are heard. And this is a temporary measure that I don't expect to occur in the future. Because we have alternates, I just indicated that you need 4 votes out of 7. Obviously, there's more than 7 people here. Some of the board members tonight are alternates, and what we do is cycle through alternates whenever there are not 7 regular members on an application. So, the next item of business is to approve the minutes of our previous meeting. Did I forget something?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, I think just for the record, the board should approve the change in procedures that you are suggesting for tonight.
That's fine by me.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Is that,
Motion to approve. Change in procedures, fine.
I mean, for discussion, I'll only note that this is not an irregular procedure, and deliberative session is provided for in our procedures, but I understand the why you're doing this. Any other discussion?
well, yeah, I just wanted to make the point that to just begin a meeting with a new, even if it's temporary operating procedure, is a decision of the board. And having registered that, I'm content to go on.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Get
An
these
alternate
people
to
to-
vote on that?
Hmm?
Didn't we appoint an alternate for that vote?
No, we don't have to, we have full board.
Okay.
No, we're missing that.
No, we don't, we're missing Becca.
Oh, I suppose I'll appoint an alternate for our first vote. Who's got the first name alphabetically? Okay, Mr. Annis, of course.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. So we'll note that Mr. Annis was the 7th vote there.
You want to get those people to come in and sit over?
Sure, if you'd like, you can sit down on the right. Of course, you can stand if you're more comfortable standing, but there are some chairs over on that table there.
We don't have the press with us tonight, so please take those chairs over there. Or chairs in the back.
Okay, so did everybody get the minutes from our last meeting? I'll take that as a yes.
Yes.
I'll hear a motion to approve them.
So moved. Second.
Okay, any discussion about the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
I'll leave you on here, Mr. Annis. Any opposed? Okay, so the minutes are passed. Can we review, please, if there are any conflicts of interest in the applications? I have a conflict to disclose on application 2014-173. Mr. Cuthbertson will be the chair for that application, and you can appoint alternates when that time comes. And also application 2014-004, the Sursasimo application. So Mr. Cuthbertson will be the chair for, I'm sorry, 2015-004, thank you. So Mr. Cuthbertson will be the chair on that application. Even if you're an alternate, it's helpful if you disclose conflicts now so that we can keep the order of alternates appointed correct.
I have conflict on 2014-152.
Okay, Joe Bushy has a conflict on 2014-152.
Me as well.
Okay, and Michael Gould. Yes.
2014-173.
173. Any other conflicts? Okay, as sometimes happens, you may not,
Should we just appoint the alternates now? Figure it out and do it now,
Yeah.
one go.
yeah,
It
sure.
would be so much easier.
Okay, so on application 2014-152,
We've got Mr. Annis.
I have Mr. Annis, who's the next name alphabetically?
Hasagawa.
Asagawa, okay.
Right.
So we're appointing, and I'm sorry, I'm very bad with names, and this is going to be tough for me.
Well, actually, you're gonna have to
You need
appoint
all
all of
three.
them on the first one there, because him and I are out, and Becca's out. So we'll need all three.
Okay, so we'll have all 3 alternates appointed.
And then on the second one, you'll need two of them.
Yep. So that'll bring us back around, and actually, we're going to have, because Mr. Annis is out, we'll have Hasagawa, I'm sorry, what's your last name again?
Reed Savory.
And Mr. Reed Savory on 173.
179's okay.
On 179, no, we need one alternate because of Becca. So then we'll be back to Annis. So Mr. Annis, you're on 179. That's WE90 technology. Then we're going to have Hasagawa and Reed Savory on 2015.
There's only one out from 2015, isn't it? You.
I'm out, and then we have
Who else is out?
Becca's always out.
Okay. Thank you.
And so Hasagawa and Reed Savory on 2015-004, and then Mr. Annis on 2015-007 in place of Ms. Ballard.
Thank you.
Am I keeping everybody
Yep.
straight? Okay. So thank you for sitting through our procedural gobbledygook. The first applicant will call. Oh, I got another thing. Oh, have there been any ex parte communications with any of the board members, not including the people who are conflicted out? Okay.
Meeting probably won't.
Mr. Bannon, has the meeting been properly warned?
Yes, it has.
Okay, the first application is 2014-152 Atlantic Security Corporation.
I'll see you guys.
This is all three alternates.
If I may, I'm Bruce Hasselback. I'm the attorney for Atlantic. And what I'd like to do is give a brief overview of what our position is, because I don't want to put in exhibits and testimony if it's something that's not contested. So if I may, I'd just like to give a brief overview. In this appeal, the violation claims that land development occurred and the land is used differently than previously. The development consists of a stockpile of gravel and sand on the property. We believe that the facts will show that the land is not used differently, but that it has been used for stockpiling of gravel and dirt for decades. Land development does not apply to temporary additions consistent with prior uses. And that's what we've been cited for, land development. Piles of lumber at Sir Sosimo's lumberyard, piles of gravel at the town garage, those are not land development. In this particular case, what we have are piles of gravel and sand, and this property has been used for that, for stockpiling them, as I mentioned, for decades. The particular pile of gravel and dirt that we're talking about here is temporary, and testimony will show that it cannot be used for structures as it has not been compressed. The testimony will show that it is put there temporarily to be used by the owner for projects that he has in mind in the near future. Testimony will show that this pile of gravel and sand does not adversely affect the environment. Testimony will show that the addition of landscaping around it, which is what the Development Review Board and Site Plan Review would require, makes absolutely no sense for a temporary stockpile. You certainly would not put landscaping around piles of lumber in Sir Sosimo's lumberyard, nor would you put landscaping around piles of gravel in the town garage. This is exactly the same sort of thing. Our client has not been charged with improper use under zoning. The use here is consistent with prior and with current practices. If it's not conceded, we certainly would present evidence to show that this is a proper use and it has been for decades. The town can, in fact, regulate stockpiles for temporary storage of fill. And I have some sample regulations and ordinances, one in Las Vegas and one in Yuba County, California, where in fact the zoning does have a specific provision regulating what you can do as far as stockpiling gravel and dirt on your property. However, the Brattleboro zoning ordinance does not have such a provision. It could have, but it didn't. And in fact, this has been, for decades, it's been the practice in a commercial area that owners can stockpile dirt for their own use. And lastly, I would just like to say that we want to reserve our rights with respect to the violation being defective, and we believe it should be dismissed on its face because it says the owner is in violation for having no permit, but it can be cured by getting Development Review Board approval. And we would say that that's like saying you're in violation for having no apples, but it can be cured by getting a banana. It's not a proper violation on its face, and it should be dismissed for that reason. But more importantly, as I've mentioned before, it's not land development. That's what we've been cited for, and that's what we would put in proof to address.
Could you say with a little more specificity what the frequency of use, since I think you said 78, and the extent of use of that land for stockpiling gravel or stone or whatever you want to call it?
Well, if the board would like to hear testimony of that, I would call Michael LaCroix, who's here, and I would ask him to go through that. I also have deeds showing how long this has been in ownership and so on. So I'd be happy to put in evidence to that effect. Okay?
That's fine.
Shall I? All right. Okay, the exhibits that are pertinent here have been marked as exhibits A, B, and C, and I have copies for everyone. If you'll bear with me a second, I'll give everybody a set of copies. Why don't you hand out these 3 sets and I'll get the rest.
How many are there?
There's 2 more. Let me give those 2 out. Thank you. And there's the last 2
Take mine, I can
sets.
share.
It's all right, I'll share with Eric.
Well, we'll see. I have this.
Okay. Let me start with Exhibit A, and I'll show that to my witness, Michael LaCroix, and ask him if he can identify that.
This would be a deed when we took the property in from, when Atlantic took the property in from me.
What's the date on that?
In 1990.
Okay, and can you take a look at Exhibit B and tell us what that is?
This Exhibit B would be a deed where I took the deed, I took the property in 1980, it's like 88.
Okay, and then Exhibit C, can you tell us what that is?
It's the original deed when I bought the property, originally became, took an interest in the property in the 1970s. It was 1978.
And
If you could just
tell us-
speak up a little bit. I can hear you okay, but.
Yeah, the
it's
deeds are just a
little-
succession of deeds from when we took the property in 1978 through today.
And do you have personal knowledge of the use of the property for that
So-
whole time period from 1978 till today?
Yes. I initially got involved with this property because it was a contractor's yard in Brattleboro. That's what it was used for when I bought it. Was used to stockpile building materials and aggregates, stone and gravel and sand in small amounts. And over the years, in various amounts. And over the years, I increased and decreased the amount of stockpiles I had there. At one point in the 80s, I had a much larger stockpile than I have now, which I used to fill the entire portion of the former state highway garage on Putney Road. It was a property that had been on the market for 10 years, wasn't paying any taxes at all to the town because the state owned it. I took the stockpile from this property that took me years to save up. I used it on the state garage property to build up the middle lot over what was a military-grade bunker that they used for salt and sand. I covered that area with the stockpile. In the 90s, I stockpiled a much larger stockpile than I have now, and I used it to fill a large property along Old Ferry Road where I built a warehouse facility. Both those projects together have added over $4 million to the grand list. I couldn't have done either one of them if I hadn't stockpiled my dirt there. I'm a small, local family business. I have to get my materials right. I typically stockpile aggregates like this, sand, gravel, for my next project. I have a project in mind for this pile. I've been doing it my whole life there. This is no change in the use of the property. And although the town thinks I'm filling the property where the stockpile is, that stockpile is on its way elsewhere. It's there temporarily.
Do you know of the time frame you're talking about?
Well, in order to use it, I intend to use it over the next few years. I have a project in mind for it. I have a specific place for it. I have some view rights, some right-of-way issues I'm dealing with there. When those are straightened out and I have my planning and utilities in place, I'll permit that project. And when I permit that project, just like every other time that I've had a stockpile there, I'll get a permit to use these soils on a permitted site.
When's the last time there was a stockpile of aggregate or something like aggregate on the place where the stockpile is now?
It's been almost continuously in different sizes. It comes and goes. I use it on a project to bring it in when I have an opportunity to get some either for the right price, and I use it as I need it.
At some point, though, there was a large delivery there within the past year or so. Is that right?
The latest pile came primarily from the construction on the interstate.
Okay.
It was very good gravel. Federal government paid a lot of money for it. I
Well-
didn't want to see it go to waste. I could use it for some affordable housing.
How much aggregate was there before that larger shipment came in?
I don't have an estimate. I know that on the state permits, we got a state permit to bring the aggregate there, and on the state permits that the contractors on the interstate put in, they indicate on the permits that they were already stockpiles there when they started.
Well, let me ask it this way. What percentage of what's there now was there before the larger delivery? If you had an estimate.
I haven't got an estimate for that.
There was some talk about the state permit. If I could, I'd like to offer that in evidence.
Sure.
So let me give everybody a copy of it. It's Exhibit D, which, I should have stapled these, I really should. There's one. There's two. Yeah, you can hand them out as I go if you don't mind. too.
Yep,
That's like that, that's the word.
that's going to be good.
Just the two more, maybe somebody can get it.
Here we're showing what's happening on the dump truck load. There's something there already. Who knows what.
Does everybody have one? I think you may have had this in your record anyway, because we had sent it to the, to Brian Bannon at some point, so he may have included it in his submittals. But let me ask some questions of Mike LaCroix to illuminate it, if I may.
Sure.
Mr. LaCroix, can you tell us what Exhibit D is?
It's the off-site activity review that the state of Vermont, V-Trans Environmental Group did.
Okay, and if you look at the fourth page of it, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Does that show where there are existing piles that you had used for stockpiling dirt on the property?
Yes, that, if you look closely on Exhibit 4, you'll see that the new Agway building is in place. So this is a fairly recent photo. It's created by a satellite for the state of Vermont. You can see on the site that that we have put this latest stockpile on. You can see that there is no grass growing, that it's totally brown, that it was covered with stockpiles of different colors. You can see different shades of, clearly see different shades of tan and brown, and those were different grades, sand or gravel, and they were present before. This is a satellite picture taken before any work was done by us that we've been cited.
And I'd like to draw your attention to what I had as page 7. It consists of a photograph of a photograph from aerial site, and then 3 ground photographs on the bottom. Can you tell us what those show?
Those are showing stockpiles at that site that have some grass growing on them.
And this permit is 7/14, July 2014.
It was,
This permit was from
Yeah, it's right
July
there.
of
oh, that's,
2014.
no, this is just a map that was created on that day.
Yeah, but
No, no,
look at the first
the-
Oh,
page.
okay, yes, yes it is.
So we're talking
This summer.
8 months ago, seven months ago to today.
Yeah. The state came in and checked that as a suitable site to hold that gravel with respect to drainage, utilities, traffic.
Is this the only place that was used by the state for the gravel in connection with their work?
No, it's stockpiled all over town. This is just one of the stockpiles.
Is there one at the Brattleboro retreat
Yes,
and other places?
certainly.
So now, you mentioned that you had plans that in the upcoming year or two, you were going to use this stockpile for construction projects?
That's my plan.
You're not planning to sell it to any third person, you're planning to use it yourself?
That's correct.
Is that what you've always done with the stockpiles?
That's correct.
Has the property that is in question here ever gone through a site plan review?
Never. All these uses were in existence before the zoning was enacted. This property has never been required to get a site plan permit because we were grandfathered on these uses until this latest violation.
If there's no further questions, I think that's all that I have on Mr. LaCroix. I do have Mr. Ron Bell present in case there's any issues or questions about the safety of the site and its effect on the surroundings, which he could address.
We may look to do that. So as stated on your reason for appeal, you would contend that this site has been a storage site for gravel-type materials since 1978, since when you acquired the property,
Yeah.
some 35-year period.
Yeah, in one manner or another.
Okay.
Question, Mr. LaCroix, in the photographs that we have, that I believe were taken at the point in which the violation was either considered or imposed, that would be September 9th of last year, 2014. You have these with you now?
Yes.
And what that,
No, I don't have those.
what
Pictures that we
these
took.
show is an expanse of undeveloped land.
Hold on, he doesn't have them. Tim's giving
I'm
it to
not,
me.
I'm not sure that we have these pictures.
Mr. Sheriff,
Yes.
could I speak to the violation before you start questioning, so that we can both have our facts out?
Sure.
And then you can elaborate?
Yeah, we'll get to you first. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Bannon.
Sure. And I think what Mr. Agavi was speaking of was a couple of photographs I received as part of a complaint by email on September 9th from an abutter to the property owner. Now, what this shows, I think you guys have the color variants, is an area of new fill that's been compressed, and it has coarse gravel on a portion of it. This is another portion of it. Now, I compared that to the aerial photography we had at the time, and I think this was done after Agway was built. You can see the building here, but more than 1 year ago in any case. And you can see that this portion of the parcel is vegetated, which is no longer the case. Coincidentally, this summer, while the excavation was taking place, Google did new photography for the town. You can see where it has, the vegetation has been removed from this part of the parcel, and there are approximately 30 truckloads of fill that have been dispersed across the area that has, at this point, been compressed and covered with that coarse gravel. Now, I felt this was a violation because there was no permit for work. And so I went to land development, our definition. And it says it's the division of a parcel into two or more parcels, the construction, reconstruction, conversion, structural alteration, relocation, or enlargement of any building or other structure, or of any mining, excavation, or landfill, or any change in the use of any building or structure or land, or extension of the use of land. Now, at a minimum, this is an extension of the use of the land for storage. And again, that's something that is allowed, it's land development, that can be allowed with a permit, but there is no permit for this. This had been vegetated, we have photographs that it's vegetated, it is no longer vegetated, it has received a large amount of fill.
Let me just ask him a question before you do, if
Okay.
you don't mind. When you say vegetated, are you talking about trees or grass, or something else?
It was mixed vegetation, it had some trees, and I think they were intergrown with vines.
And are you referring to, can you use north, south, east, west to just help point the board to what you're referring to? I'm just having a little bit of trouble with my satellite photos.
Sure. It's the southern portion of the parcel that's closer to Brown Court. It's directly to the north of the bank building.
This has trees.
Well,
The boundary, Brian, as in the trees along what I assume is the property line. It looks like
So this is the most recent. You can see this is the bank building here.
Yep.
This is the area filled here.
Yep.
yeah, we don't have that photograph, that's something the town has.
Your photographs?
Yeah, you're
I have
more
a
than welcome to
spare.
have
I
it.
have a spare. I have a spare.
Can I ask Mr. Randers some questions to see how
Yes,
this
but
testimony?
I'm happy to let you ask questions. I just want to make sure that the board understands what he's telling us with respect to these maps before you do, but I'll make sure you get your chance, Travis. So, Brown Court is the drive to the south of the site, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And then you have a building that's parallel to Brown Court. That's
Thanks.
the Members First Credit Union, right?
Yes.
And then a building slightly to the northwest of that. Are you referring to the line of vegetation between the credit union and the building to the northwest?
Which will be here.
I'm referring to this area of vegetation between the parking lot of BDCC and the, you guys call it the Lamplighter Annex, which is on Putney Road. So this area here.
What is this?
This is an earlier photograph. This is one from while the work was taking place. This is over 1 year old, but after Agwood was built.
Is that in our package?
No, I don't know.
I'm not sure it is.
I haven't seen that one until now.
It's the color photograph that's in the back.
That's a more recent one. This is an
Yeah, we
older one
definitely
showing
have the recent
vegetation.
Oh.
I'll come around with those two.
Well, this has vegetation.
Not in the middle there. Okay. Thank you.
You'll get a chance.
And I can print additional copies of this if it, you know.
Is that what I have here?
No, it's not. So it's this area here.
Okay.
So where is
So this is the photo I'm showing around. It shows,
Can we get a copy of it?
certainly.
Is that what you have in mind there?
It shows the area of vegetation here, and you can compare this to.
All we did was mulch our stockpiles, it's just, it's grass on it, because
Yes.
you wanted to mulch.
This is not.
And this is the one that was permitted in
You're-
July,
you're-
it's started in July, and there's trees there in
This is from before.
Right, in our permit, we showed, our state
All right,
permit, we
hold
showed
on, hold on, we'll get a chance, you'll get a chance. May I ask some questions?
Just give me one more crack at this. I apologize. What is the date of the newer photo in our package?
That's Google imagery. It was taken this summer during the course of construction, but prior to September 9th.
Do you know if it was after 7/17?
This one, provided with the state permit, was taken in 7/17.
No, I don't know.
Well, it's dated 7/17.
Okay.
Oh, this is the state.
yeah, the state's photo is dated 17, that's when they downloaded it, that's not when
Right.
the satellite took it. It was taken
Okay,
shortly
all right,
after
makes sense.
Oh, okay.
Agway was built.
Okay, now just before Mr. Hasselback has a chance to ask a question, does everybody on the board understand Mr. Bannon's point and where he is referring to? Okay. Attorney,
Actually, I have a question. Did you remove any trees from this site to put that,
No, we showed that we had
fill that?
Right, no, we showed our stockpiles mulched, just like we've mulched the stockpile we have there now, and they grow grass, so it's conservation mix, and it grows grass all over the stockpiles, that's what he's seeing is grass. You can see that all of the landscaping that was there is still there, and there's more there now along the book press edge than there was when the state's photograph was taken prior to the towns, so.
so to be clear, you're saying you didn't take down trees here?
We show what we took down here. They were just our stock that.
Oh, no, I understand. I just want to be clear.
Right. We didn't take down trees. We took down. We flattened stockpiles that were mulched, and we laid
Okay.
more gravel on top of those.
Go ahead.
Mr. LaCroix, looking at the somewhat older picture that I was pointing out, the picture that was taken just prior to the point of the violation, and then looking at this one, which is a bit older, it's very clear that that piece of property, your piece of property, had been used to stockpile earth materials, because you can look at it from this aerial view and actually see what looks very much like about 40 or maybe 50 piles
We don't contest that we put a
of earth
stockpile there.
materials. And here I have a picture, not too many months later, in which all the piles are gone, and there's an area that's a bit higher, looks like maybe 3 or 4, almost like a little plateau. And if someone had told me that all of these stockpiles of earth materials had been graded out, I would say, well, it would look exactly like it does look.
Well, Spoon, you're absolutely right. We parked. That's just one layer of dump truck loads you see in this photograph. The dump truck piles are several dump trucks high. So once we had one load of piles in there, like you see in this photograph, we flattened them out and we brought the dump trucks in again and we did it again, and then we flattened it out and did it again. And that's what you see.
Were you
here.
required to grade it like a plateau?
By the town required us to contour that and mulch it as part of their letter of violation to us, and that's why you see it in that shape today.
That's incorrect. The
Well-
violation notice was given out after it had been contoured and graded.
No, that's not right.
Yes, it is.
No, we
Well,
had to call
what-
Basin in to do it because of your letter. We were still,
The photograph that I've given you shows that on September 9th, a couple of weeks before the violation was issued, their area had been graded and a portion of it had been covered with coarse gravel. That's
Rather
the-
than going back and forth, since
Hold on,
Mr.
hold on.
Bannon has
Hold on, hold on, hold on. I
testified.
just want to hear what he has to say. I'll get to you.
So I did not go there when there were piles of soil there. I went when it had been contoured and gravelled, as like this.
So you took these photos before you issued the violation?
This was photos taken by an abutter. They were sent to me on September 9th, and I received them a couple of weeks before I issued the violation.
Okay.
And that's not gravel in the front, it's called trap rock. Trap rock is used to get the soil out of the truck's wheels before they leave our site and go back on the highway. It's there for specific reasons, because we would bring the trucks across that trap rock on their way out. It was a condition of Basin's federal permit that he does that, he doesn't track dirt out under the pavement. And that trap rock that he refers to as rough gravel is there so that we can continue stockpiling. And the pictures that he has is in the middle of our stockpiling. We would put as many truckloads of gravel as we could get in there, we'd flatten them out and put another layer on top of them, and that's what he has a picture of, is us driving onto the next layer. And we stopped because we have this violation.
Okay. Attorney Hasselbach, I'm happy to have you ask some questions of Mr. Bannon. The custom we have here to try to keep things civil is that you ask the question to the board, and we have Mr. Bannon's answer. It's not quite like cross-examination in court, although the functional result is the same. So could you let us know what you want him to say?
Well, my first question is, because he seems to be offering photos and evidence, my question is, when did he first observe the site, and does he have personal knowledge of any of the items in the photos that he seems to be offering into evidence?
Do you want to speak to that in addition to what you said before?
Certainly. Again, I was given these as a complaint, as is my custom. When I receive a complaint, I go out to the site to view it and see if there is an actual basis for a zoning violation. I went out to the site. I spoke to a person who was operating machinery on the site. He said that he worked for Basin Brothers. A supervisor in a pickup truck came up and talked to me. They explained that they did have a state permit for moving materials in. I explained that an additional town permit was necessary for doing this type of grading and excavation and fill. Basin Brothers has done this type of work in other parts of town. For instance, in Upper Demonstration Road, they've done extensive fill and they've received a permit. They've done a temporary storage area nearby up towards the exercise gym off Putney Road towards the north. They've received a permit for that as well. In this case, they didn't receive a permit.
Did the site look the same as it looks in these pictures when you went out there?
I would say it looked similar. It was graded. There was an area of what Mrs. Corey is calling trap rock. It looked like useful space.
Do you remember the names of the abutters who took the picture?
I don't. I think the email is in your packet. Rod Francis did these ones, but I received other ones.
Sorry, what'd you say?
Rod Francis sent this one.
Okay.
I would respectfully ask that those photos not be received in evidence because they're hearsay. They were not based on anything that Mr. Bannon saw. They're based on things that were sent to him. So there's no verification that this is a true picture that you're seeing. And certainly, my client shouldn't be held in violation based on a picture that somebody gave and the person isn't around to verify that it's accurate.
Mr. Chair, can I speak to that?
Sure.
I can confirm that these are photos of the site.
Can you tell me how you can do that?
Yes, because I visited the site after I saw these photos and I recognized it.
I'm going to let it in, Mr. Hasselbach. Other questions for Mr. Bannon?
Do you agree, Mr. Bannon, that land development has to be something that's new, that hasn't happened?
Well, hold on. It's
Do
cross-examination.
do you agree that a land development would have to be something new to the property that hadn't been done before?
Can you speak to that if you'd like?
I would refer you back to the definition, which says it does not have to be new. It can be a relocation or an enlargement of any building or other structure, or of any mining, excavation, or landfill, or any change in use. So the enlargement itself can constitute land development.
Do you agree that if the property had been used for stockpiling gravel and sand for 20 years, continuing to do that would not be land development?
If you want.
It was my determination that there was an expansion of the use, an expansion of excavation and landfill.
And I mean, I'm just going to note for the new members of the board, this is calling for something of a legal conclusion that we're ultimately going to make based on the ordinances that Mr. Bannon and Mr. Hasselbach are both referring to, which is in your package here on this memo. So it's helpful to, I think, read that as you follow along. Continue.
If I may, I would like to make some argument on that and submit some cases later, but if we're finished with Mr. LaCroix, perhaps I could have Mr. Bell testify that the property in its temporary state is not causing any problems such as erosion, pollution, and the like. Unless, of course, that's agreed and stipulated to.
I would agree. The violation notice did call for erosion control measures to be taken. They have been implemented. I examined them. They seem to be customary erosion control devices. And during the site visit, Engineer Bell assured us that there were no utilities running under the area of fill, so there were no concerns about accessing utilities in the future. So there are no safety issues.
Okay. So unless anybody on the board disagrees, I'm comfortable moving forward without getting that in the record if the town essentially concedes it.
Okay, great. That's one reason why I wanted to raise those points, so that we wouldn't be wasting everybody's time by putting in evidence that's not contested. If I may also ask Mr. Bannon, do you agree that there are many commercial properties up and down Putney Road that have been stockpiling dirt on their property without any objection or violation?
I would say that there are some that, to the best of my knowledge, have a continuous use of stockpiling. There's been no change in the volume of material stockpiled, and I've not issued any violations for those properties. There have been others, as I mentioned, one on Upper Dummerston Road and another further north from Mr. LaCroix's site, where there has been stockpiling that has increased in extent, and in those cases they were required to take out permits because, again, it's an extension of excavation and landfill, which is land development according to our ordinance.
And your standard for when you issue a violation has been based on the extent of the enlargement generally?
A non-trivial enlargement.
Okay. Do you have anything else, Attorney Hasselhoff? If you'd like, we can come back to you after I give the board and the public a chance to ask questions or comment.
Why don't you do that? Yes.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Brian, is it the planning department that issues a permit for fill on a property? If, in this case, should Mr. LaCroix or Atlantic Properties have come and requested a permit because they were going to temporarily increase an existing use on that site?
If it's temporary, I can do construction permits on an administrative basis. Otherwise, if it were more permanent, it would be a site plan approval,
Okay, and that's under what section of the zoning code?
1550.
Under 1550, site plan review? Okay.
That might be heard by the board, or if the chair felt it was sufficiently minor, it might be something that could be approved administratively.
And in the case you cited on further north on Upper Dummerston Road,
Yes,
they came in and applied for a permit to increase, temporarily increase, or to increase the amount of fill on that site.
yes, that's
Is that
correct.
So the adjacent and further to the north, that property complied with the zoning regulations by applying for that permit, which you issued administratively?
Yes, it's a temporary stockpile, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board about these issues before I open it up to the public? Yes.
I have one question on the exhibit, the sort of outline of the diagram of the property. And in that it says that you've got a little less than half an acre to receive the earth and waste. It's really hard to tell and compare that to the picture, but it looks like it's expanded beyond that. Is that correct?
No, I don't believe it has. The parameters of that were specified. That's probably part of Basin's permit, and it looks on the ground like it's very accurate, actually.
Any other questions from the members of the board? Are there any members of the public who wish to speak to this application? Or who have questions? Now's your only chance. Okay. Mr. Hasselbach, was there anything else you wanted to?
Yeah, I would like to ask Mr. LaCroix, are there any areas where the dirt is that have not been used for stockpiling dirt in the past?
No, the area that I'm stockpiling in, I've used the stockpile since 1978. I had a much larger stockpile there when I bought the former State of Vermont Highway Garage, and I used that stockpile to get that property onto the tax rolls. And I had a much larger stockpile there when I built the warehousing facility on Old Ferry Road. At that time, we had a zoning administrator that had been here for decades, and she was well aware that this stockpiling was going on, and it was never a violation. This is something brand new, and it's something that we think we do some good to the local grant list, and without this area to stockpile, if I have to get a permit every time, it's a game changer for me. I've always enjoyed developing in Brattleboro. I'm not sure why all the excitement over stockpiling here, where I've been doing this the exact same thing in bigger increments since I was a kid.
Have you ever got a temporary permit for
Never,
stockpiling?
ever.
So you've never had to?
No, and we've had some long-term, long-standing zoning administrators who've all been aware of my projects, and because I bought this site as a contractor's yard, so that I could stockpile there, it's never been an issue until just this time.
So we go into deliberative session soon, but I know you have some argument that you wish to make, and
I do, and
now's a good time, I think.
I'd like to present a couple of things. One is, it's not an expansion of the use, because the expansion of the use would be if he only stockpiled in the north end of the property, and now he's stockpiling in the north and south end. But he's used the whole area for decades to stockpile, and it's not a change in circumstances. What looked like plants before, it's just mulch of existing stockpiles. It's been recognized by the state that he's been using this over that time period. So it's not an expansion of an existing use. It's in a case called Mizrachi, the Vermont Supreme Court, in a slightly different context, said that in general, an intensification of a use is not land development to require you to get a permit. So, for example, if Sir Sosimo has a pile of lumber 10 feet high, and now they have a pile of lumber 50 feet high, they don't have to get a permit. Otherwise, it would be chaos. Similarly, if the town garage has a pile of sand 15 feet high, and then the next year they have a pile of sand 20 feet high, they have to get a new permit because it's quote-unquote expansion of use. It's not an expansion of use. Expansion of use is when you have a different area that's being used, or something that you've never done before, this is not something that's never done before. So I would like to submit the Mizrachi case, which basically says that this is not something that would require a permit because it's an increase in intensity of use, which the intensity of use would vary from time to time because that's the nature of stockpiling. And I would also like to submit the stockpiling ordinances that I mentioned before in Las Vegas and in Yuba County, California, where the zoning ordinance specifically addresses this exact issue and says, if you're going to stockpile dirt, this is what you have to do. It's never been addressed in the Brattleboro ordinance, and it's never been prohibited, and it's been an ongoing process in the commercial district. So I respectfully urge that what's being sought here is an expansion of the zoning ordinance to areas that it doesn't actually cover. So those are the items that I would respectfully submit, and I have copies for everyone.
Do you agree that the development is a landfill under the definition within the Brattleboro bylaw?
No, because a landfill would be when you're putting it there permanently, or if you had a hole that you're filling. This is just a temporary item, so it's definitely not a landfill. A landfill would be a commercial business also. You would hire it out to people. And there's a very instructive case called the Labarge case, where a property owner had set up for his own amusement an ATV course, and he put mounds of dirt to have turns and embankments, and he developed the whole thing. It was for his own use, and they gave him a violation and said it's development. And the Vermont Supreme Court said, no, it's not development. It would be development if he was developing a commercial use. But since it's for his own use, it's not development. Same thing here. It's for his own use. If he was to set himself up as a landfill and say to other people, come, you can dump here, I'll charge you $10 a load, that would be a different use, and that you would have to get a permit for.
That's a change of use, though.
Exactly. But this is something that's an existing use, and it's been in existence for decades.
And the reason it isn't landfill is it's in a commercial or industrial zone. In order to make it useful landfill, we would have had to fill it in lifts. Our engineer is prepared to tell you, in order to be a useful landfill that we could drive on or use, we would have had to put it in 6-inch lifts, compact those, put in 6 inches more and compact them, or we won't be able to build on it. People that builders know that. And in this case, we put it in by the dump truck load, and put dump truck load on top of dump truck load without compacting it, because we intend to stockpile it and not use it as fill. It's not fill.
So if I may, I'd just like to hand these out.
Sure. These are the cases.
This is the items that I mentioned before, the case and the ordinances. All so that you folks can look at them and consider them and give them such way as you deem appropriate.
Yes, my inclination to go into deliberative session, unless you have anything additional you'd like to present us.
No, I don't.
And everybody on the board is content? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Bannon.
Yes, just a couple of things. As far as intensification versus expansion of use, intensification, it strikes me that it's a permitted use. It's waning, it's waxing, but it's well within the conditions that were approved by the site plan approval. The expansion is something where you call into question those site plan conditions. Do you still have adequate landscaping? Do you still have adequate drainage, stormwater treatment? Are there impacts on the butters that are unreasonable? That's not something that's addressed by intensification. That's if you expand, those things have to be re-examined. That's the purpose of issuing a permit, is to see if those impacts are unreasonable on abutters or if they create any hazardous situation. This is an expansion. The area, I've shown you folks that photograph. It's vegetation. I visited that site a number of years ago before it was cut off. Mr. LaCroix explained that to me, that it was removed because...
Before it was,
Before the trees were removed,
oh,
which was only a couple of years ago. They had vines in them. Mr. LaCroix cut them down. I received a complaint at that time from a butter, and that was his explanation, which seemed reasonable. But, you know, it was a wooded portion of the parcel.
those are the same trees you described as vegetation when we were comparing the other maps that you're referring to?
Yeah, that's correct.
I would like to have Mr. LaCroix testify in rebuttal to that.
Sure.
Mr. LaCroix,
So just testify
What-
to us.
what trees, if any, have you cut down on the property?
I have cut trees around the border of that property.
But have you cut trees in the area where the material is now?
No.
Okay, we're going to go into deliberative session. We're going to try to do it quickly. I appreciate everybody in the audience bearing with us. I assure you, we're not being paid hourly. And we'll try to get...
Motion to deliberative session.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Any
All those in
discussion?
favour?
All those in favor?
Sorry.
It's okay. So, we just engaged in deliberative session. The discussion of the board centered mainly on whether the applicant's space that was filled with, what is this gravel called?
Phil.
Trap?
Trap rock.
Trap rock was an enlargement under the definition of land development, and whether it was a landfill under the definition of landfill. The conclusion of the board, which was unanimous, was that it did not constitute an enlargement due to prior use, and that the definition of landfill was either inapposite to the type of development occurring, or the type of, use of the applicant's parcel, or too ambiguous to clearly encompass that use. So, having explained that to the public and the record, I'll take a motion.
Motion.
Okay, so to be clear, the motion would be to rule in favor of the applicant and overturn the issuance of the zoning violation, which was 2014 V48, issued September 23rd, 2014. So with that said, now you can say so moved, and we'll be a little more organized.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that concludes application number 2014-152. The next application is 2014-173 ZB Properties. And Mr. Cuthbertson, you'll be chairing that application. I have a conflict, and Hasegawa and Reed Savory are appointed.
Hi, please tell us about your application. Oh, is it in the, is it? It is an application. It's a request for site plan approval. Retroactive site plan approval at that.
Ready to be?
Yep, away you go.
All right, and we'll try to be fast and efficient, yet give you enough information so you can make an informed decision. And one thing, Mr. Bannon, you can help us with, in the technicality when they get ready to make their motion later, either for or against, we are in here as a result of a violation, but we're doing a site plan to bring that to conclusion.
We'll figure that out.
So figure that out later. I'm Gordon Bristol. I'm the B part of ZB Properties. Next to me is Steve Zaluzny, who is the Z part of ZB Properties. We are here tonight to talk about our project on Western Avenue, and we'll give a little history of this particular property. It seems we're going down history lane tonight. This particular property, Steve and I have seen our entire life. I grew up on Brattle Street, and back in 1971, in fact, I was instrumental in arguing on why there should not be a motel built there. At the time, the Esensi family wanted to, build a car dealership there. They owned the Ford dealership in town. And then later on, after that wasn't permitted, they then wanted to put a hotel in there. So we've been sort of watching this piece of land for a long time, and it's gone through some evolutions, but remained in their family. And we purchased it approximately a year ago, this last month, in fact. What we're in here today is to talk about that we took a vacant piece of land, we removed trees and some undergrowth, we removed debris. We're now having before you plans, which you have the whole packet, so I have large versions here. We have drawn, by Ron Bell, our engineer, has shown that places in which we have installed some silt fence, and there's others to go in the spring. We're talking of how we're going to mulch the land and put conservation mix on it. And we've also listed shrubbery and trees that we're going to be putting in the spring of 2015. Other than that, what the evidence will show inside of here, a lot of it, when we got our notice of violation from Mr. Bannon, we immediately contacted him. I think we've had a cooperative relationship on bringing this to conclusion. Everything the town has asked for, we have filled out and put in here. One of their main concerns was how was the drainage going to be affected, and after engaging Mr. Bell, it's within your testimony here showing that the fact that the land is now cleared, it does not have any adverse effect upon the neighborhood in any way, and it goes into all of those engineering ways in which it shows that that doesn't happen. The other thing that we showed you in here under the testimony was the fact that we had also tried to be cooperative with the neighborhood back in September. We had informed the neighbors that we were going to be going in and doing some work. So on that note, I'll stop unless Steve has something to add, that basically you have everything in front of you. We certainly have tried to want to cooperate with the town, bring this to conclusion tonight. If there's any, I know there's at least one neighbor that's here, anything we can work out to bring this to you folks being happy and the neighborhood being happy and being in compliance. Any questions?
So, what have you done thus far?
What we've done thus far is we have taken down the trees. Now, when I define a tree, none of these trees had marketable value, so we're calling it shrubbery. In other words, it wasn't that we came in and did logging. The trees were all junk trees. Property was in quite a bit of disrepair. There was junk vehicles on the land which we had to remove. There was unsavory characters that had taken up habitat in part of the property. We moved the drug dealers out, in other words. And we had come in and taken down the shrubbery and cleaned out the property. There were some it was originally back before the Esensees bought it back in the 50s. It was known as, there was a florist here in town, and it actually had the foundations, and they've been there forever, of greenhouses. It was pretty neat out there. There was nothing but a bunch of greenhouse foundations. At one point there was a house on there as well, and that house, the foundation wasn't there because it was a stone. There was some remnants of the stone, but there actually were some concrete foundations that were out there for the greenhouses that we took out and removed. Again, everything was properly disposed of. Steve's big into that, into his business, so it wasn't taken away and dumped over a bank. It was all properly taken away and disposed of.
But you've removed foundations, you've removed debris or whatever it is, and you've clear cut the property.
We pretty much cleared the trees.
Okay.
And like Gordon said, other fallen debris to clean it up, really, and so nobody would, in the short term at least, be out there. I think people had used it as a dump somewhat, since it did have a lot of large vegetation on it, and there's a road out into it. And you could see where people had occasionally dumped things, with their mattresses and that type of thing, that they didn't want to pay to take to the landfill, So in the short term, it's a matter of clearing it and make it more visible too, just so that wouldn't be happening, would be one other aspect of the clearing.
And there was, I mean, you saw that it was shrubbery, but looking at the overhead photograph, it looks like there was
There are large trees
a
on
number
it.
of large
Yeah.
trees on there. They may have been,
They were large trees, definitely, yep, that we took down.
Yes.
And as Gordon mentioned, there are a lot of old foundations there, some of them, like a main house near the road towards the rear, shallow foundations, possibly, you know, but in those areas, trees were growing up there since I think that probably hadn't been utilized since what, maybe back towards 1960 or before that was when that property was, quote, abandoned or whatever status it went into, and then obviously trees have been growing there for, you know, since 1960 or longer, I'm assuming. I
Right.
don't know that date exactly.
The East and C's kept title to it and used the property as basically the claim title to it, but they kind of got mad at the town of Brattleboro when they couldn't build their car dealership and then not have a hotel there. So I think they kept it there sort of as spite and let it become a junk, rubbish area, if you will, a lot of debris.
so, having cleared the site, what are your, aside from the kind of stormwater calculations and so on and so forth that are here and
Yep.
look fairly comprehensive, what is your intent for the site?
Okay, what we have a drawing, and it's sheet 2.2 that's in front of you if you were to have the big sheet. We show that we want to come in the spring and we want to begin buffering this from the neighbors a little bit, so we have drawn in some native trees, native white pine, and also hemlock to put in here
For a screening
for screening
purposes.
for the neighbors, primarily on the west side, that they, you know, can sit there and begin seeing some shrubbery get grown up again. We have nothing that we're in here now we have nothing proposed for it. The reason that Steve and I bought this together was the idea we might have to hold on to it for 5 or 10 years. The idea is to find the right thing for the town of Brattleboro and come along. So when that happens, there'll be a site plan coming in for that. But right now, we have no contract, no active discussions with anyone to do anything. It was really come in, clean it up, because it looked so horrible, and now plant it and maintain it. It'll have conservation mix on it, as the narrative talks about. There's quite an elaborate narrative on your drawings under the erosion control and sediment control. And again, I'm hoping that the neighbors had a chance to see that, but on your sheet 1.2, it goes into the elaborateness of the erosion control and how we'll be maintaining the site going forward.
So let's just step back 1 second. You've cleared the site. You've
Yes.
done, which is, as far as we're concerned, is a form of development. You are not proposing either commercial development or residential development or any form of
No.
development aside from putting it into, let's call it parkland for a second, or a clean site that's got mulch and
Cleaning up the site, basically.
a landscape site.
Right. That is it. Yes, that's the perfect wording. Yes.
Okay. I mean, for site plan review, normally we would expect to see, you know, the boundaries of the site, the setbacks on the site. If it was for residential development, a compound marked out where the house site would be developed, or if it was for commercial development, a similar kind of compound, so that we could review that. But there are no plans at this point to do any of that work, any of the future development work.
Correct.
So from the standpoint of the board today, we would review your landscaping plan, your possibly the curb cut, unless there's any reason not to go on there, to do that, and ensure that you bring it into some kind of reasonable site to look at.
Right. And I think the fact that we were being cooperative with Brian, and we're just saying, well, what is it that you'd like for us to do on this to bring it back where it can sit there and operate peaceably for the next number of years?
Okay, so talk about the landscaping plan then. You got these little stars on this plan are trees, are they?
And of course, you have the reduced size, so we brought the big ones, but we have two
This is
types
okay.
of trees. We have the native pine and the hemlock. We wanted to use trees that were indicative of the area. Steve can speak to that more. And all we basically did was dot them in here, working with Ron Bell a little bit. That's one of the things that we'll certainly open the door tonight. I know when it comes under further testimony, there's at least one neighbor here. If they want to see some trees moved around or something, we can talk about that. But what you have in front of you is what we gave the best guess to be the right thing to sort of berm this property with shrubbery.
And that, if I'm reading this correctly, this is on the western edge of the property,
Yes, the
Yeah.
west and south.
Yeah.
western side of the property.
Yep.
There's nothing on the street, along the front, and there's nothing on the eastern side. Was there a reason not to have shrubs along the front
I
or
think
some
there
form?
was, is that correct, Gordon? There was some concern about seeing 91 from some of the properties. Was there a reason for the west side?
The west side was, yes, some of the first comments we got from neighbors when this happened was, oh, now I can see the interstate, I can see this, there's a house there that's not in that great a shape. And we were more concerned with having the neighbors on the west side not have to
Look at the
see
interstate.
anything east.
That seemed to be a concern,
Right.
you know, so we're just trying to come up with what I think people want. But
Right.
So you're screening, this is a plan to screen the beauty of the interstate,
Yes,
Sort of.
Sort of,
yeah?
yes,
Okay.
in some, yes.
All right. And these trees as laid out were, as you say, hemlocks and pines, so relatively fast growing.
yes, that's one reason we chose those
And-
trees. Yeah.
And what size trees are you putting in?
3-inch caliper, I think it is.
Yep.
Is that right? Yeah, 3-inch
Okay.
caliper.
And then your proposal for the rest of the site is just to mulch it and
Yes.
grass it and put a
Right. It would be on the southeast corner. Currently, there's some stockpiles there of mulch material. So there's no drainage in that direction. You know, if that were to be moved around, then we'd have silt fence in that area too, as it shows now. But right now, there's no place to put that silt fence that's shown there. The other silt fence at the southwest corner is in place.
Okay.
And that's where the water is currently draining on the site, towards that silt fence that,
On the southwest corner?
yes, southwest, that's where the drainage is currently, as it had been before we cut any trees. It has not changed, that I can see. Is that correct, Gordon?
Right, nothing's
Yeah.
changed, and he also
The drainage is the same as it was before.
right, talks that it doesn't go off-site, it all remains, the way it's percolated for a million years is going to continue to percolate. This didn't change any of that.
And your comment about stockpiles just now. So there are stockpiles of mulch that will be spread, or there's stockpiles of.
There's some mulch from the clearing operation that are in the southeast corner. There are no plans for
There's
those.
no other fill on that site, or you haven't
No,
moved
no.
any, excavated anything else.
There's
or-
no plans to bring anything in, and the mulch that's there will be used up over time.
Yeah.
It was basically a way to recycle. With a lot of the small, as I said, I mentioned that most of it was small shrubs, and that stuff has been made into mulch, and that'll go off-site.
That'll go off-site, or it'll stay on-site?
It'll eventually
Be used on the site?
some will be used on-site, but some will just go, get it out of there, it's too much.
And the actions that one of the things that I haven't looked at the stormwater plan here, but the actions that have been taken thus far, one of the things we're concerned about when you do site clearance or development is that there's no net increase in stormwater leaving the site. This is.
I can speak to that a little bit. Brian, that was, and we compliment Brian in this. Brian did his job. We had originally given him an application. He said, I would like this to be more elaborate with speaking to that.
Yep.
And therefore, we engaged Bell, and Bell came out and looked at it and has done quite a good report. And I think I'll let Brian speak to it to his satisfaction that.
Just outline what you're doing, or what.
Well, basically what Bell showed here was that there is no change in the runoff, that the way the land was before, you haven't done anything to the dirt to change anything. So, I mean, the short version is, there's no change. Now, and he elaborately goes into that. what we're also doing is we are taking the precautionary that he said, put some silt fence just on the two edges by the neighbors.
Until vegetation
Until
is
vegetation,
established.
we're gonna come in and plant it in the
Once
spring.
it's seeded, there's no seed there now, but we're proposing to seed it. Of course, we couldn't do that till spring.
And we have a plan somewhere here showing where those erosion controls are going to be?
Yes.
Yes.
And again, it's the sheet 1.2. And when you go to deliberate, you're welcome to take these back with you. But it's all, it's what you have in your packet. It's just blown up to a size you can see.
Okay. Any other questions, members of the board, for the applicant? Would any member of the public wish to speak to this application? Please, if you would like to come forward to the microphone up front, you have to. Yep, you're. Were you, if you could state your name, and I just have to ask you, were you here at the beginning of the meeting?
Yes.
You were sworn in? Okay.
Yes, I was.
Good. And your name is? Are we on? It is on, yeah.
Is it on? Okay.
Yep.
My name is Chris Pratt. I live at 412 Western Avenue.
So you, where's
I'm
that in
adjacent-
relation to this?
I'm an adjacent property owner. I think I'm within 300 feet of the line. I
To-
submitted a letter to Brian, and I think he copied it to the board about what the property transformed from to. I take exception to them calling it brush. It was a woodlot. I mean, I had foxes that came into the backyard. And if you take a Google overlook and look down on it, I mean, they even said that these trees have been growing 50, 60 years. Well, it wouldn't be shrubs. It's been growing that many years, since 1960. So, and I witnessed personally tractor trailer after tractor trailer, chunk of trees being cut down and pulled out of it. So I take exception to the fact that it was a lot more than brush. In fact, when I moved there, I've been there about 5 years. I said, this is great. I have protection from 91. I have protection from wind. I have protection from this junky neighbor that had junk cars in the backyard. I had a little woodlot. So from every window in my house, you saw nothing but trees. It was wonderful. And in 2 days, I went from that to the whole property being clear cut. I mean, my property value has probably dropped to at least $10,000. I'll be glad to get before and after property assessments. I mean, now from my picture window, you see a fairly shabby house with a fairly junky backyard. You see Route 91, you see the entrance to 91, and you see not a very nice picture. So somewhere along the line between rules and regulation and laws, I think justice kind of got sacrificed. I mean, it seems to me that a planning commission is supposed to be doing things before they're done. It seems to me that a zoning plan shouldn't be retroactive, it should be done beforehand. I mean, why aren't adjacent property owners and people that are going to be affected by what happens consulted before things are done rather than after? So anyhow, I want to submit some pictures as evidence. These are bigger than the ones you have. I don't know.
They just pass them on the end.
I only have one. I didn't
That's
have
okay.
my lawyer.
That's okay. We'll pass it along. Well, Chris, can you tell us where your house is exactly? You want to just mark it on my map for me?
I'm the one that has the trees on it.
You're on Western Avenue here,
Yes, I'm the one
or you're
that has
here,
the-
or you're here,
On his plot map, there's some trees on this edge.
on this edge here.
I don't know if you have it now. Where's the plot?
This is, I'll let you speak for yourself, but I'm identifying that you're two houses away.
Yeah, that's me
Okay.
right here. This is,
Thank you.
I'm right here. And my picture window's right here. And this is all, and this is the house I'm talking about. And if you look at the pictures, that's.
If you could just go back to the mic, sorry.
Sorry about that. So anyway, if you look through the picture window, that's what you see. And those I submit as evidence. And anybody who looks at them can say it's dramatically changed, and it's not for the good. I thought there was something in the zoning ordinance that talked about protection. I mean, the answer to this visual decimation really is 7 3-foot trees. That's the landscaping. I mean, I understand what he's done for the water control, and I think that that's admirable, but 3-foot trees, you know, versus 2 acres of woodlot does not even come close.
Well, they're
And I'm only
not,
getting
we don't
some-
know how tall his trees are.
Well,
Just
in
that,
the site plan, I've got them, they're 3 feet tall.
no, they're 3-inch, which is the 3-inch caliper, which is the width of the trunk.
Maybe I'm wrong.
No, that 3-inch caliper is the width of the size of the trunk of the tree when it's planted, and it'll grow to a 4-inch or 5. Well, we don't know how high they are. We can pose that question.
And I would also propose that
10 and 8.
that the house on the other side of the property also have some landscaping done. So there's a little protection on both sides. I mean, it really went through almost 2 acres of a woodlot to clear.
18.
So that's it.
Thank you very much. Would any other member of the public wish to speak to this? Please come forward, sir. Oh, no, we have a microphone.
My name
And your name is Bill Keefe?
Bill Keefe Landscape, and I'm a butter. And I'm here just for information. And I'm also been part of the project, and I'm very familiar with the land. And so I just need to go on public record that we have been working together.
Talk to me.
I'm sorry.
Just talk to the
Well, I was
board.
talking to them right then. That
Yeah.
all I want to do is just be on record that I have been involved in mulching, chipping the brush, and stockpiling the chips, and using the back corner of the property. That wasn't brought up, and I just felt it was important that that be known, that as part of good use of the materials on the land. And I think that the land is, at least from my point, is we're trying to do the best with the land. But my name wasn't mentioned as being part of the project, and I actually have a contract with these CB. So I just think that needs to go on record, that's all.
Yeah.
And and you have a property adjacent to this one, Bill?
Yes.
Are you directly adjacent, or are you?
Yes.
You're a couple away.
No.
Yeah, there's
no.
there's the little
Because my
small house
property-
between you and them, but your property abuts in the rear.
Yes, my property abuts.
See how his
Okay, I
property
got it.
goes in the rear and
Yeah,
abuts
okay,
directly.
got it. Thank you very much.
He's,
Would anyone else from the public wish to speak to?
That's all right?
It's perfectly
I
fine
need to be
for.
sworn in though, because I don't usually participate in that.
Okay. Do you affirm that the evidence you give in the cause under consideration should be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I do.
Thank you.
My name's Frederick Noyes. I live at 53 Orchard Street. So this property is line of sight from my house, and certainly since the deforestation, let's say, has occurred, I can definitely see a lot more of Route 91. I can see a stream of headlights at night, and certainly we walk by or drive by this property every day. It's somewhat disturbing to myself and my family, I guess, to see the sudden and dramatic change there. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Would any other member of the public wish to speak to this application? Okay. It would seem, I mean, I'll ask you to address a couple of those points. It would seem that certainly some of the neighbourhood properties have been affected by the clear cutting of the woods or trees or whatever. Visibility of 91 and headlights or whatever it may be that people can see, or which they didn't before, is something which we, do pay attention to. We ask for fencing, we ask for whatever, but can you speak to the within the landscaping plan, a 3-inch caliber tree that's a hemlock or a, what sort of height are we talking about?
Steve's the better expert at that. You can talk about how big they'll be and how fast they grow, because that was part of how we chose that. But if you know
Yeah.
that far better than I.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure about far better. I mean, Bill actually might be a source since he does some landscaping.
But we're looking
work.
at, what, 10-foot high trees that are going in?
Is that, do you think that's realistic? I'm not sure myself.
3-inch
3-inch,
caliper tree is a good sized tree.
10 foot or so?
It's going to be in excess of 10 feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only other comment I did want to make is we did have 18 planned at this point in time to create a screen. There's, I believe, 18 shown between the two species there.
And in your wisdom tonight, if you want to move any of those around, we certainly want to bring this to conclusion.
I don't necessarily know that we're going to determine the exact spot of trees for you.
But
But what we might do is ask you to put more in, or to put street side
Understood.
shrubbery or
Understood.
trees, or we may ask you to mix them up with some deciduous or something, just so there's some variety and we have a more natural.
The reason we went with the pine and just faster growing and
Yep,
All season screening.
you know,
that is also true.
Deciduous, not so much.
And the only thing I'd ask before you deliberate is if Brian could possibly chime in and explain I think the cooperation we've been with you, and that I think we brought this to a conclusion.
Yeah, procedurally,
I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but I do want them to hear.
Yeah, let's hear what Brian has to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should make it clear to the neighbors that there isn't a thing called retroactive approval. You get your permit before work is done, otherwise it's a violation of the zoning code, and that's what happened here. Once that violation notice was issued, the applicants came in and they wanted to cure it by putting in an application. They didn't want to contest that there was no violation. And since then, they've worked closely to try and address the concerns of the town, and I believe they tried to work with neighbors to address their concerns as well. Or certainly, they expressed concern about neighbors.
Thank you.
Can I
Oh yeah, please, Chris, come forward. Please come forward.
think to that? Again, I guess I'm the only one of the only landowners that has a problem. But when you go from 2 acres of woods to clear cut, and then you get a retroactive site plan after the fact, I mean, the damage is already done. So it's pretty hard to be in my position. I went from woods to a vacant lot and views of Route 91. So to say after the fact retro plan, you get a retrofit done, and these guys come in and say we're really going to work with the town to do everything. Well, they've already shredded the whole woodlot. So there's not a lot you can do about it.
Well, go on. Stay there. Yeah.
Can I say, for what it's worth, had they come in prior to cutting any of those trees down and applied for the same permit that they're asking for right now, with all the same information and all the facts the same, there's probably not a whole lot we could have done to deter that plan from occurring just exactly as it had, save for some mitigation in the form of screening or some trees or something else like that. And we're certainly not done discussing what's going to become of it yet. And certainly the board definitely takes into consideration your butters, even if it is after the fact.
Right.
So your concerns aren't unheard, but the board only has so much process, whether they're here before or after, as far as what we can make them do.
They certainly have a right
Well,
to do.
the other thing though, technically you are 100% correct. If they had applied for site plan approval in the normal process of development in the town of Brattleboro, then you, as an abutter to that property, would have been advised that it was occurring, and you would have had the opportunity to, one, come before the board and speak as you are now, but before it happened. Two, the applicant probably would have attempted to put your fears at rest and may have modified their plan.
Well,
But we are in a what's the phrase? We are the clear cutting, or the situation has occurred. So now we're looking at a site plan approval with some form of remedial action.
I understand.
But thank you for speaking.
Thank you.
Yes, please do.
If you were gonna put something in along Western Avenue, what would you think of putting along the front of the property?
You talking about screening or?
Screening or
Potential.
planting or
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, I understand that you don't wanna have the property totally, hidden, yes.
Right,
Thank
right.
you, hidden.
So for,
Hidden so that
Yeah.
people will start using it as a dump again.
Right, exactly.
But-
Yeah.
well, I'll give you an example. That's a good question. What comes to my mind is what I can't kill at my house, which is forsythia bush, for example. You know, you could throw in 10 forsythia, but they grow like crazy, and it would grow up, and that would help you. If that's something that you go back and deliberate, that kind of a plant is what I would propose to throw in there, something that would grow up quickly, fill in.
It's colourful and it remains green.
Right. And that kind of thing.
I would like to take this to the deliberative session next time, briefly. If the board feels that way. I said I would like to take it to deliberative session. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, there's one more comment.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Mr. Keith, Bill Keith, please come forward.
A lot of what is now visible wasn't visible at all in the front because it was really rubble of bittersweet vines and other brush. And now that they've cleared it, they have more work to do to grade it, remove foundations. So the only thing that they can do is improve it, which I'm sure that they will do. So then whether they decide to put some trees or some shrubs, the next step for them is to really undo what had been an eyesore you really couldn't see because it was under so much brush that you couldn't even walk down the sidewalk at times because the Japanese knotweed, et cetera, had really overtaken the whole front 30 feet of the property. And now that they have, there's just foundations and rubble and it's not even graded. And so I'm sure that they will put trees or shrubs, but also like make it look 1,000 times better than it did over the last 50 years.
Thank you.
You know, I was a neighbor and it was an eyesore.
Thank you. So I have a motion for deliberative session from Michael. Can I seconded that? All those in favour?
Aye.
Okay, we're going to depart for as quick a time as possible. I reconvene the Development Review Board meeting of, what date are we? 18th. So, as is the custom of the board, once we come out of the deliberative session, we generally let you know what the nature of the discussion was, and fairly simply, the board feels that the landscaping plan should be more extensive than that you have shown on here, and to some degree more remedial in terms of replacing the kind of woods or forested nature of the lot that was in existence before. We have no comments on your plans, whatever they may be, to grade, improve, remove rubble or foundations. I think you're just going to go ahead and do that. We would like to see landscaping on all four borders or all four sides of the lot. As shown on this lot, there are 18 trees. We think you should double that to 36. And that on the front side, there should be what we would define as street trees, a couple of street trees and maybe some forsythia or lilacs or some bushes that you pick and you choose. The street trees discussed were shade trees of type that can be set back from the frontage by whatever amount that you deem appropriate, and red oak or maple or something that's typical to Brattleboro and the northeast would be appropriate. you won't have to, we decided it's not necessary to return to the board for approval of that site plan, that it can be administratively approved with the oversight of the chair. So we're looking for a more dense remedial screening of the lot on all four sides. Any other comments from the board? Okay, I'm looking for a motion to approve. Actually, any comment from the applicant? You can stay there. Or
We agree with that.
Okay.
Thank you for
Okay.
your deliberation on that.
Thank you.
Yes.
They go. No, the plan will be goes to Brian and then yeah. So I'm looking for a motion to approve application. Sorry, guys.
2014-173.
2014-173.
So moved.
Second.
We had a second.
Confused. Who moved it first? Michael. Michael moved the application, seconded by Joe. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? 7-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I call application. Let's find the plan.
2014-179. Peter, how are you?
Call application 2014-179. WE Technology. Welcome back.
Good evening. Thank you for having us back.
Okay. Let's just, could you call in Mr. Annis, please? We're missing a board member right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Here he comes.
If you would like to, as we affectionately say, tell us about your project again.
Okay, again, essentially what this is a three-lot subdivision of a parcel owned by 90 Technology Drive, which is located behind New Chapters, where they rent at 90 Technology. As you remember, this is the
Peter,
lower...
can you hold 1 second? It's just, well, we have a technical issue here.
You don't have it?
No, James has this one. Change of chair.
Where's James?
I did have conflict on this one.
You have...
No, he doesn't.
James
The next
doesn't-
one, he has a conflict on.
James didn't
Yeah.
have conflict on this one.
I think he thought we were... Thank you, Craig. Can you grab James? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So
You're
I don't need
you're
to
out
be
on
here.
this one.
Yep.
We're a little new as a current board. We have new members and we're dealing with the logistics. Sorry. That was my fault for telling you to hold
Normally
on.
what we do is we run around the table and we remove one seat.
Or do we have alternates?
Yeah, Alice is here.
Okay.
He's on the end.
Okay, could you tell us about your project?
Sure. This is a three-lot subdivision that you looked at a couple months ago for WE90 Technology Drive, located at that address behind the what New Chapter rents right now, and on the lower plateau between the West River and the building we just described. This plateau is located, I'm not sure how many feet, 30 to 50 feet above the West River in elevation. You asked us to look at a couple things last time we were here. You wanted to know where the floodplain was, and essentially the floodplain on the plan you have in front of you is located to the west, or the west edge of the old railroad right-of-way, which is shown as a line running north-south on the plan there.
there is a parcel of the property that is located on the west side of that railroad right-of-way also, which is part of what we have marked as parcel B3. That would be in the floodplain. It also would be in the shoreland zoning area that you asked us to look at also.
And you've got your utility easements marked now, right?
We talked about utilities. For the utilities that they would need at this point, they would either come along the proposed road right-of-way to each of the parcels, or there would be separate utilities, for example, power lines that might be, easements might be granted other places across the other property that the applicant owns.
Okay. And there are no existing ones that aren't marked?
No, there are not.
Okay. Brian, does that cover everything that we asked them to cover at the last hearing?
I wasn't here, James, but I believe it was.
Ah.
Yeah. Yeah, the subdivision requires that the edge of the special flood hazard area be marked on the plat.
Right.
As Peter's indicated, and then there should be some provision for utilities, so that should also be recorded.
Or right of way for utilities.
Pardon?
ROW, right of way.
Yes, for the utilities.
And you're I don't have a map in front of me, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, we do show you the right-of-way on the map. We have not, as of yet, marked the floodplain and so forth on here, but we certainly can do that and submit it to the zoning administrator. That's not an issue.
I would assume that can just be, speaking for the chair, that could be a condition.
Absolutely.
On the plat, the final Mylar contains those.
Right. Yeah.
The subdivision Mylar, when it's recorded, contains those.
That's correct.
Okay. And there's a connection to the West River Trail here as well?
The West River Trail, right, as was explained last time, they have granted a temporary easement. In fact, maybe you know more about this than I do, to the West River Trail while the construction is going on.
We were looking for when that what we discussed was that's a kind of a 1 or 2 year thing, which you graciously said move it higher or move it wherever. We were looking for a recording in the plat of a permanent connection to wherever the West River Trail ends up going back. That was a requirement.
Yeah, where the West River Trail goes back is on the old railroad right away.
On the old railroad, yeah.
Okay,
so a point of contact across on the plan that allows that to occur. Is that on here?
The West River Trail starts sort of by the marina and goes northerly from there, and it goes along the railroad right away, which crosses through the property here.
Correct. If you wish to access that trail from this property, how would you do it? That was what we were discussing before.
Well, you could get on. There is an old roadway that comes up from the railroad up to that field that's being subdivided.
So can we agree to mark that as a point of access to the trail?
I would probably have to discuss it. I think it's, I don't know.
Let me just 1 second, Mr. Miskovich. Let me just, I'm not chairing this, but I'm making the most noise. Section 2355, subsection D, subsection I of the Brattleboro zoning ordinance requires pedestrian and bicycle connections both within the district and to adjacent zoning districts and to the West River Trail shall be provided. The application, this particular application does not make a provision for this as yet. So we are asking what your thoughts are with regard to that provision, or whether you wish to meet that or not. It would be appropriate to make it at the subdivision stage.
Go ahead, Mr.
Mr. Vice Chair and Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My name is Craig Mr. I'm attorney with Dr. Duncan Martin. I represent the applicant, and I'm aware of that provision in the request from the planning department for that accommodation. The ultimate use of the property may be reviewed and approved by the Public Service Board, subject to 248 jurisdiction for electric generation facilities. If that is the use, a right-of-way would probably be prohibited by the Public Service Board as being inconsistent with an electric generation facility. So I would ask that the board at least kick the can down the road and not impose a right-of-way at this point that may be inconsistent with future development subject to a different board. I'd hate to see, as we sometimes do, the local municipal board making a decision and placing a condition on the property that's inconsistent with the decision of a different state level board.
So obviously we've granted a temporary easement already to the West River Trail, given the construction that's going on with the interstate. There is a trailhead, not on our property, but further east of our property, where access to the trail is, and then it comes essentially onto our property at the old railroad right away, which is separate again and distinct from us. So we can't really grant any rights to on the railroad right away. So I think we're open to some sort of easement. I think the only thing we would be concerned about is traffic for the loading dock section of the building there. It's kind of, if you came in through the old access road, you're kind of coming through where the loading docks are it's something we would have to look at and work out.
Okay. I'm conscious of Mr. Miskovich's observations here, and this board will not wish to make, what is the phrase? Pre-sequential rather than subsequential. There's some lovely word. We've done it once before and got in trouble. He's not commenting.
I don't know what that word is.
You don't know?
Pre-sequential in Webster's, I doubt.
It was an Act 250 thing that we did at some point in time, and it caused some trouble. When we placed a condition on a permit that was subsequently had to be revoked, because it conflicted with, as this might, with an Act 248 or an Act 250 requirement.
So what happens? So if we call for a provision for a trail spur that connects the West River Trail with the north end there, probably go through up through the old northeast area, wherever that was. And we put that in as a condition, and the the power board,
Public Service Board.
Public Service Board doesn't like it. They say it's not possible, or it shouldn't be there. What happens then?
It's not there.
It's not there. So it seems like it's better to put it in now as a condition. If it gets taken out, it gets taken out. But I want the Public Service Board to be aware that this is what the town wants. And they may, and then see how it falls. Rather than not put it in and have to go back later and because if it's not showing, the public board's not gonna say anything. And we won't know. This way, if it's in there, they have to say something, and we do know. And we can make other arrangements, other plans.
You want to respond to that?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair, thank you very much. That's not exactly how it's going to work. The Public Service Board doesn't have any ability to remove a condition that you have put on the property. They don't have that authority. They don't review and approve or have the ability to remove a decision by a municipal panel. What would happen is we would have inconsistent directives from two separate and equally compelling authorities. The town would be saying, put a right-of-way in, and the Public Service Board would be saying, no, you can't put a right-of-way in. And I guess at that point, the only thing to do is we'd come back and, I guess, amend, those would be inconsistent, and we'd have to clean up that inconsistency, and we'd have to come back before the board.
Okay.
That's difficult to compel an applicant to be in violation of at least one directive at a time. That's not a comfortable place for an applicant to be, especially when there are lots of representations that applicants have to make with respect to their compliance with zoning decisions and bylaws. In addition, not only do you put the applicant in a possible inconsistent decision between two boards, this is a lousy place for a pedestrian access. I mean, this is going to be coming down the road through Win Stanley's property next to a large commercial facility that has a lot of truck deliveries. And I totally appreciate the sentiment and the desire to get to the West River Trail to make use of that wonderful resource. But as the applicant pointed out, the trailhead is a stone's throw away. The appropriate place to access the West River Trail in this part of Brattleboro is at the trailhead, which has additional parking and is just, again, a stone's throw away. So to put a pedestrian access through a commercial property with an access a few hundred feet away and risk putting that applicant then at odds with another board that has the ability to compel us to do something different just doesn't make a lot of sense.
It's not just New Chapter, as Peter mentioned earlier, it's also the Country Kitchen facility, and the Country Kitchen folks actually have a higher, truck volume than I would say than the New Chapter folks do. So it's a pretty active distribution facility.
I'm having trouble. I think there is a desire, and it's a worthwhile desire, to be developing this network of trails that people can go from area to area on foot. And when you look at the map, that's a big shortcut. I don't imagine it would be, in any case, a lot of foot traffic over it, but you never know how it develops. What I feel is missing, and if I should, is perhaps had there been a conversation. I don't know where, for instance, had this been thought out? Had anybody opened up the maps and said, where could a trail, where would be the best place to connect the trail, the West River Trail, with an upper reach on Putney Road? And and it seems like that road that comes down behind what's New Chapter, that would be your access road?
Technology Drive.
It seems like it's a trail that's already there. But the issue is maybe the Public Service Board wouldn't approve it. Is that what I understand?
I think that's exactly the point. I think that there's an issue probably with the Public Service Board. There's an issue with, I think, safety concerns, accessing it through an active distribution facility. And I think that our sense is
Well, we've worked with the West River Trail folks throughout our ownership and will continue to do so, that really the appropriate spot to access it is from the trailhead, where there's parking and it's already kind of designed to provide the entrance point to the trail.
Spoon, the other thing is it's quite a distance that's not developed from where you come into the loading area to the West River Trail. I mean, it's not there's nothing there but vegetation at this point. There's two, you can get down to each plateau on two, there were agricultural trails, basically, jeep trails, for lack of a better word, right now, and they're steep, okay? So there really isn't anything developed from the where the trucks come in.
Parking lot.
Yeah, to the trail at this point.
Right now, the temporary trail that's put in to allow construction of the bridge goes past the staging area that's being used, and then turns up a short upgrade and goes along the field. Is that the field, have I got it right? That's the field that you want to do all the solar stuff?
So I think if you look
Or
at
is it the lower field?
it would be the lower field, where are the 3 lots that are being subdivided, and most likely it would be lot B1.
So a trail, then what I'm thinking, a trail could remain that would still go up that same little upgrade and through the wooded area and come out by New Chapter. And would that in any way interfere with what you're doing?
I don't know. I would have to see where that is on a plan.
Yeah, does anybody else know exactly where I mean? I've walked along that many times, but if other people haven't.
Yeah, I walked along the trail where it jumps up, where it goes
Right,
down the flat, and
right.
goes up
And
across the plateau, and then back
when
down
it
on the
comes
other
up to
side.
the top, right there, you can turn to the right, and there's a trail, looks like it might have been an old road of some sort, and then you walk through what is a field of sorts, and it's overgrown, and you come right out into the New Chapter parking lot. And that's what I have in my mind as a very possible likely place of a trail. And if that's not going to interfere with what you're doing, then I don't have anything more to say, because it can happen otherwise.
Yeah, I don't know exactly where that is
Maybe,
on the plan.
Let me look at the map you have in front of you, and maybe I can just point to.
I mean, it's worth noting that this does not require a right-of-way, it requires a connection. It sounds to me like there's presently a
Where's
connection.
the trail? The trail's right here. This is the West River Trail right here.
Okay. And it's, I can't really tell, where's the staging ground here?
I don't know. I haven't been down there to know where the staging
See,
is.
what I'm thinking, here's what I'm thinking, is that this trail would come up through here.
Yeah, there's a agricultural trail that came from here up to this field like this, and then there's another from this upper field. There's a
I don't think so.
a similar type
That's not
of
plain language. is it?
agricultural access that comes down like this down the bank.
To the West River Trail. Yeah.
Maybe I can address Mr. Agave's point and then kind of suggest, maybe connect that to maybe my larger point. And that is, the question is, can the applicant provide a right-of-way over this portion of his property, I guess the
B3.
southern portion of B3? And I don't know that that would be a problem. It may be a problem with the applicant's further development of the property and the decisions of the Public Service Board with respect to Section 248. But I think the larger issue is Okay, that's fine. That gets you from, effectively the trail and maybe over that current staging area to the road that services the larger facility. But what we're saying is that we're going to have pedestrian access over a road that is serving, because you have to, for a right of way, you have to go from someplace to someplace else. And so to get to the next public way, which is Technology Drive, we're going to have people walking through the commercial industrial area that is this upper developed area. And I'm saying that that's not safe. That's not a good use of the land. It's not a good place to put a right of way when the access for this beautiful, wonderful resource we have in Brattleboro is right here. It's very close by. There are no residential uses in this part of Brattleboro for which people would use that right of way. And so it seems like to satisfy a line in the zoning ordinance, which has a lofty goal, this is a pretty clumsy way to do it by providing a pedestrian right of way through an industrial and manufacturing facility when there's ample access a stone's throw away. That's the applicant's point.
Can I ask the applicant, and the last point of public road is the end of Technology Drive in the top right-hand corner of this map. Everything on the new chapter lot is, in essence, a private road. It's
That's
private
correct.
service.
That's right.
So we're up here, Technology Drives, and it ceases. I don't even know whether Technology Drive is a town-maintained road, but presumably
Yes, it is.
ceases at that entrance to technology. Sorry, to let's call it the new chapter
Right.
property.
And what's constructed right now, you can actually see on the plan. You can see where the road comes, from Technology Drive, where the road comes in.
Yep.
It comes into the loading dock area and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what's constructed, that's what's a paved roadway. Now, there is in the very corner, there is a propane facility where there's a gravel road to that. But that's the extent of what's there right now. The rest of that is all fields or parking area. So you can see what's there. It is a distance.
And there's the 50-foot right-of-way that sort of serpentines, slinks down the side. That is not intended to be a paved road at any point. That's just purely a right-of-way for services or access to these lots.
Access to these lots.
And should those lots be developed with something different than residential, then you might put a road in, but otherwise not.
Correct.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board?
No.
Does the board want to go into deliberative session or deal with this here? Oh, sorry, the
Any
public.
questions?
Any questions from the public?
I have one last question for the applicant. You at the previous hearing, you, in inverted commas, stayed the process of subdividing. At this point, we're moving forward with subdivision. We're going to approve subdivision.
Correct.
Just to be clear what we're doing.
Do you folks want to go to the deliberative session?
Sure, ready.
Make a motion.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any
Favor?
discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
I was
Aye.
missed the discussion.
That's all right. Okay. So we went into deliberative session and we discussed the issue of the section of 2355D that states that a connection to the West River Trail shall be provided. Our conclusion is that a connection is not a right-of-way and does not require that we tell the applicant where the right-of-way shall be, and that the facts on the record right now establish that there's presently a connection to the West River Trail because of this bypass. And we feel that that's sufficient to satisfy 2355D(I) or 1. And if that connection were someday terminated, that might be at the applicant's peril, but right now, the situation is that there's a connection. So our conclusion is that it's appropriate to approve the application subject to the conditions that we discussed in earlier meetings. If you'll make that motion.
Motion to approve application 2014-179, with the conditions that the plat is updated with utility rights of way, or easements, or whatever it is that's necessary, and flood hazard area delineation. Whatever was discussed last time, which you would. So I think that's the only conditions.
Second.
Any Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next application is your size.
That is correct.
So the next application. Oh,
Go ahead.
The next application, this application, it's getting late. 2015-004 Sasasimo Lumber Company. I'm conflicted out.
This you, Peter?
It is.
You didn't move?
No.
Please tell us about the application.
Okay, this is essentially a boundary line adjustment between Sasasimo Lumber Company and Green Mountain Power. It's located off 142, and it's north of what Sasasimo calls their mill number 3. And there's a substation on the Green Mountain Power property. Sasasimo's been leasing a portion of Green Mountain Power for several years, an area that's adjacent to their complex and at the same elevation, and they've been using it for storage for these many years. Green Mountain Power and Sasasimo have come to an agreement that rather than lease it, Sasasimo would buy it from them, and so that's what this map essentially shows, which is about 1.7 acre parcel going from Green Mountain Power to Sasasimo. No new construction, everything is going to be exactly the way it is.
Thank you. I don't have a map. Anyone got a map? Thank you. I lost it. Technically, would you define this as lot line adjustment?
I think so, that's correct. Yeah.
There was some question raised about wetlands. Is there any wetlands here?
There is wetlands in that area, but there's no new construction, nothing's being affected. But there are definitely wetlands on Green Mountain Power parcel and also the Sasasimo parcel in that area.
Are the wetlands marked on this plat?
No, they're not. And it'd be a heck of a job to do it right now.
Snowlands.
And I don't think it really would accomplish anything anyways, based upon what's happening. It would just be an exercise in cost, basically.
And okay. And we're doing local Act 250 review at the same time?
Yes,
Oh,
there's a
yes.
250 permit on the Sasasimo piece.
And the Sasasimo piece is increasing?
Pardon?
The Sasasimo piece is increasing
That
in
is
size?
increasing in size, that's correct. So it has no effect, obviously, on any of the 10 criteria. I would expect
What
that
is-
may
can you
be
just-
administrative approval, because that's...
Can you, with that 250?
Yeah, with 250.
Locally, we go through the motions though and just and do it in this case. So, what the Sasasimo piece goes up to what in size again?
It goes from 11.45 acres to 13.18 acres.
So we're adding a couple of acres, which will have no impact on Act 250.
Well, any commercial property over 10 acres
Yeah.
has...
Well, we were already over 10.
We were
That's
already
what-
over 10, and
yeah.
that's why it's got a permit on it already.
Yeah. And the wetlands such as they are where on this map? Just for my interest.
Basically, they're around that boundary between Sososmo and Green Mountain Power. They are also further to the northeast of, well, they're near where it shows the roadway coming in the northeast portion. And Sososmo has, on his property, there's a part of the setback that on the edges has wetlands also. And that's in the very southwest corner of the Sososmo property. If you...
Does it, one of the things that was raised, and I'm not sure, not looking at the scale of the map, is that wetlands have a 50-foot buffer zone. I don't think, you're not impacting it in any way?
We're not changing anything that's different at all, but, you know, we're not...
There is no
doing
development?
There is no development. There's no construction taking place. It's simply a matter of going from the lease situation to a purchase situation, different ownership. Although it was years ago, of course, it was reviewed, wetlands was part of the review of 250 back then, too.
Yeah.
If you, I don't know if you know this or not, but this is the old burning dump in Brattleboro, this property. And, you know, for years it laid fallow, and then Sososmo built this mill on this property.
Just for me, the little top of slope kind of line of semicircles, is that a reinforcement of some sort, or that's
no, it's not. It's just the top of slope. The reason it's marked on there is really for the purposes of Green Mountain Power knowing where this line is. Okay, the easement was, the easement was not exactly where this line is now. It was fact on the bank before, but it only made sense that Sososmo would control all of the dry land, you might say. Okay, so that's why it's on there. It wasn't for your purposes as much as for Green Mountain Power knowing what they wanted to convey to Sososmo.
Okay, so let's just go through the criteria. Local Act 250, there's no unreasonable burden on the ability of the municipality to provide education. There's no development, there's no more families or no more children.
Yeah, no change in personnel.
No unreasonable burden on the ability of the municipality to provide municipal or governmental services. There's no
Same
change.
police, fire, and so forth.
Okay, and it's in conformance with the town plan. No change.
No change. Industrial
Okay.
zone. You know.
For me, I think as there is no change, it's just a lot line adjustment. Does anybody feel that we need to go? Oh, 1 second. Any member of the board have additional questions?
Nope.
Any member of the public wish to speak to this application? Thank you. Does any member of the board feel that we need to go into deliberative session on this one? I don't think so, right? So we have a fairly clear-cut situation of we're moving a line between two properties and nothing else is changing. And it's being adjusted for, land use purposes. So I'm looking for a motion to approve application 2015-004, a plat for approval for adjustment of a boundary line and local Act 250.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those against? 7-0. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Okay, call, the chair gets to change again, but we're going to call application 2015-007. Steve Horton for Winston Prouty. Please come forward. Do you have a big plan? We'll get you an easel. That's yours, that's yours. These things fall over. I don't know. It's not so you can get painting glass.
No.
Here's what we do so that the camera, TV camera can look at it. If you stand to one side and point as appropriate.
Okay.
That side's good.
Chloe speak first. Introduce what's going on, and I'll stand up.
Okay, why don't you tell us about your project?
Okay, my name is Chloe Leary. I'm the Executive Director of the Winston Prouty Center. We have been talking for a couple years about how best to accommodate the growth in services, community-based services that we do. We did a strategic plan and realized that in terms of, rather than just sort of spontaneous adding a room or, accommodating current growth, thinking big picture about what's happening in our community, how we're serving children and families. And so we are adding space, actually space that we needed probably for the past 3 or 4 years because we've added staff who work in the community with children and families. So part of it is office space to accommodate that staff. And then in the discussion, we realized that we don't actually currently serve infants. So that is a need in our community. We're going to add infant care and another toddler classroom. So 2 classrooms, office space, indoor play space, and a large community room, conference room, because we also host a lot of community meetings on site. We do a lot of collaboration with community providers like HDRS, Wyndham Child Care, Early Education Services, Family Services, State of Vermont, Department of Health, and we have a good facility, and so we often have meetings on site. So we'll be able to continue doing that. Right now, for instance, in this cold weather, the children play in the conference room. So we're sort of, if you were to see our space now, you'd understand that we're already, we're bursting at the seams currently. So this has been a couple years in the making, a lot of iterations and plans, and we have ended up here with this plan, which Mike can speak to.
Okay, my name's Michael Marquise. From Marquise and Morano, we're civil engineers. Briefly just go through the existing site plan for those of you not familiar with the property. Right in the center here is the existing building. It's accessed by Winston Prouty Way off Guilford Street Extension. We have a parking area on the westerly side of the building. And then there's a large fenced-in play area on the easterly side of the building. And then on the southerly side, we have overflow parking and then a grass area. So our proposal, again, the existing building outlined here, our proposal is to add a 60 by 60 addition for what Chloe described. In doing that, in order to meet some of the regulations that the town has, we have expanded the parking. So whereas the original parking area came here, we will be creating more of a loop. This will go to the south. And then some additional parking where the overflow parking area is now off the south side of the building. The play area will pretty much stay the same. What we plan to do in terms of drainage is a bioretention area. That's simple for the old detention ponds with some plantings in it. It provides both treatment for keeping the runoff on site and also treating it before it goes into the ground. We're also going to upgrade the water service coming in. Currently it runs right along the sewer line.
We're going to bring it to the other side of Winston Crowdy Way and enlarge it. My understanding is that the fire flows require that. What else is here? There's a couple of things that are, I'll just note the lighting. Originally, when we submitted this, we had 4 lights. We've talked to a lighting designer, and they believe they can get that down to 2 lights. Basically taking these 2 that are on the end, bringing them a bit more to the middle, eliminating the light in the middle, and also the one on the south side of this parking lot. Another small change is there will be an interior stairwell off the north end of the building. It's my understanding the shed that's on the east side of the building will be removed, and there is going to be some green space on the south side of the proposed addition rather than the parking lot right up to it. Basically, that's the outline of what's being done. And if there's any questions.
Where do the emergency vehicles go in and out?
Emergency vehicles will come in Winston Crowdy Way.
I mean, do you want them to come all the way through the parking lot?
And
How's
they'll be able to loop through the parking lot. That's my understanding of the way it was set up for line. And these radiuses should take care of any emergency vehicles coming in.
Okay. Do you have plans to run a conduit to accommodate electrical vehicle charging?
I
We
haven't
have
heard
not
of that.
discussed electrical vehicle charging.
You have to.
Great.
Just you don't actually have to install the chargers, but you have to provide the facility to install the chargers at a later date, should it be so desired.
Bike storage or bike parking?
Currently, people use the lamp post that's there. We don't have an official spot.
Okay. Is that sufficient?
It has been. We have 2 staff who regularly bike and use that spot.
Okay. There were a couple of letters to us about concern with light pollution, I think to the west of the proposed plan. Could you talk a little bit about what measures are in place to ensure that light doesn't go off the property?
Well, my understanding, and I got some comments today. You're going to have to forgive me. My business partner, Jane, was the one who did the whole design, so I'm the second team tonight. But, my understanding is that they have done, there's several things that they can do. The one thing that they have to do is there's municipal lighting guidelines, especially in areas where there's small children. So there's minimum lighting that they have to do at the site. As I understand it, it'll all be down lighting, and it'll be kept at low levels. They said that the lighting could go off at 6 o'clock, if that's a concern in terms of time of day. And they also can have motion sensors to control during the later hours if it needs to go on for any reason. So the goal here is to mitigate anything, and like I said, they feel that they can cut down from 4 originally proposed down to 2 the number of lights.
Is that 2 in addition to the 2 that are already in place there, or is that reformulating what was it going to be a total of 4 into only 2, including the existing?
I think there's only 1 right now, and the 2 would replace everything else that's there.
I drove in there last night and there were 2 pole lights. There was one
Okay.
close to the building.
Okay.
And there was one set back in the parking lot. I was trying to look at what the abutter was concerned about.
Regardless, the 2 would be replacing those.
Oh, okay.
There's one here, I'm not sure where the other.
Right, the one close to the building existing now, and it seems like there's at least one about a 20-foot pole out in the parking lot, so. Is that correct?
So
I've missed that.
the photometric plan that we have is inaccurate because you're reducing from 4 to 2.
That's right, that'll be changed.
Which 2 are coming out? She
So-
said they're moving in.
eliminating the center one and moving these two across.
Okay, and then the one at the back here?
Gone.
This
Gone.
one's gone. So
Okay.
the center one's gone.
So
This one's
they're
gone.
taking this out and this
These
out,
two will be moved
and these
more
two are
towards the
moving
center.
closer together.
Balance it out.
What materials are you gonna use on the walls and roof other than brick, if any?
I can show you. some elevations. We had a brief discussion about that tonight. Steve, I don't know, Steve Horton was.
If you could just come up to the microphone so the people who are watching on TV can hear what you have to say.
Are you part of the application?
I'm Steve Horton, yes.
Did you
Would
swear?
you like to sit?
I'm happy to, or I did swear.
You're sworn in, okay. Wherever you feel comfortable, as long,
Thank
that thing on the table's a microphone, that's a microphone, as long as you're near a microphone.
I am the Winston Prouty project manager for the project and have connections to the details and can help answer some of your questions. The siding choice has not been completed or confirmed yet. We're talking about a horizontal siding, a clapboard type configuration. It's a small wood frame addition proposed. The roof would be metal, standing seam metal roof, for sure.
Do you know what colors either would be, or is that still?
It's still to be determined.
Will the building conform to the Vermont Commercial Building Energy Standards?
Yes.
There was a question from one of the people who wrote in about, they call it a stone wall, and they also sort of refer to it as boulders. But I understand that there's presently some line of some natural thing that demarcates the western border there. Is that going to stay or go or change? Or you don't know?
No, our intention is to keep that natural boundary as natural as we can. There is a portion of around 20 feet long or so of an existing old stone wall, and we would prefer to keep that there. There does need to be some minor clearing. I want to use the word shrubs that was used earlier tonight, but we're truly only talking 6 or 8 or 10 feet high trees in that proximity that might have to be cleared in order to expand the parking slightly closer to the boundary line.
Could you just indicate where that is?
Yes, Michael, would you help
On the
with that?
existing plan?
So the stone wall that's being discussed is right along here. And it's more of a boulder wall, and I'm not sure it's a neat stone wall.
Yeah, they use
Okay.
different terms for it, I wasn't sure.
So that's in here. Our original grading plan did not show maintaining that, but you know, if that's desired, we can probably maintain quite a bit of this in here, because our new parking line is going to be pretty much along the existing parking line all along here. It's actually going to come back up in this corner and straighten that out.
Is there room in there to provide some landscaping so that there's privacy for the neighbors on that side?
Yes.
And is that part of the plan?
Yes.
What, do you know what the landscaping will be?
No, it's our intention to provide a landscaping plan between the properties. We haven't had time to do that yet, but we have heard from the neighbors, and there is a concern about line of sight, and we would be happy to address that issue with some sort of landscaping screen or hedge.
Okay. Does anybody on the board have further questions for the applicants before we turn it over to the public? public who has sat here for quite some time. Now is your chance. Can you just say your name so that the people who listen at home know who you are?
We're Wendy and Jeff Brewer, and you haven't received a letter from us because we could be here in person tonight. Our neighbor's son, you received a letter from the Henrys, Betty and Mike Henry, and their son John is also with us, as well as some other folks that are very interested in this proposal. We have been property abutters to the Winston Prouty Center for 18 plus years. Our property line happens to be the line that's really probably going to have the most impact, impacted the most by the parking extension. Right now, we are looking completely out into green space and a beautiful garden that's been growing by the school with the backdrop of our property.
You're 92?
Yes, we are. Yeah. And it'll be a pretty dramatic change for us to have all of a sudden to go from this beautiful piece of green space with gardens in our yard looking out to a parking lot, basically. Joni Mitchell's words, paved paradise instead of a parking lot. And this is Vermont. Vermont is, we love that there's Act 250 because you can scrutinize these kind of developments. And we do like to preserve green space. We feel very strongly about our neighborhood. It is a business that has been very friendly over the years, that it happens to be in a residential neighborhood. We feel very strongly that, yes, we're very happy to see that they are growing and they're providing a service to the community that is very important. A lot of that service is provided out in the community, not necessarily at the school, from what we understand. And so we're concerned, and we have some photographs that we'd like to show you of our property, and really the tunnel vision that we show from our kitchen window and our beautiful rock patio out into the property of the Prouty Center.
Would it be all right if you gave those to Todd on the
Sure,
end there
just
and
pass
he
them
could
along.
send it around?
This would be the green space. Your property is elevated a little bit above?
No, absolutely not.
It's
It's below.
all at a level.
Yeah, it's actually below their parking lot. It's a little bit below. And so the parking would come across, and there would be definitely, a slope that would happen.
And what, on the, I guess I would define it as your rear boundary or the western side. You have no trees or shrubbery or barrier right now, you just look through onto their gardens and past their buildings.
You can see our property and the back side, that would abut that property.
Yeah, it'll show up clearly in the winter and summer photographs. I'm Jeff Brewer.
Hi, Jeff.
And we had a chance to meet with Chloe and Steve and Brian, and it's been a very useful part of our time. While they're excited about their addition and what's to come, they've been planning this for 2 years, and I wondered if there was any provision that we would have been included maybe in those discussions back 2 years ago, and I just feel strongly that would be something that maybe someone, we got our notice 2 weeks ago, so we're concerned about the water runoff in the pavement. We're concerned about a lot of extra traffic. They want to add 17 more car spaces, and the runoff is 14 feet from our property, and we're concerned about that.
Can I ask you to pause for a second? Because
Sure.
I'd like to hear from the designers on the runoff
Yeah.
before you move on. I just don't want to forget it. What are the measures in place to deal with the runoff from the new impervious surfaces that might go in a westerly direction towards their lot?
Well, currently,
and it's, I'll take a step back. I think the soils out there are very good, so absorption is excellent. I don't see for the existing parking, which is fairly large, any runoff problems. But what would be provided is off the edge of this, certainly on Winston County side of the property line, is a ditch line that comes down through here. And so it's going to come down through here along the property line, and then, as I said, come out to this fire retention area that will hold and treat the runoff. And keep it from moving outside. And that's going to be picking up both edges of these parking.
That's the natural lie of the land, is it, the run of the land? The land is falling in the direction of your fire retention
That's right.
ponds.
So it's, it's falling this way.
Okay.
And, we're going to have to create a swale here to make sure it comes down and gets
Into that pond.
What size?
It'll just be a grass swale.
Yeah, okay.
Sure if we have a detail of that or not.
I'm sorry to have interrupted you. Please continue.
No, and so while we're on that subject of the extra parking, we, part of our meeting with these folks and Brian is to come up with maybe some alternative solutions. And we certainly live close to Memorial Park. I think, Chloe, we talked about our economy is becoming more part-time across the country, and we thought that there are more part-time people coming in and out, and we offered memorial parking as a backup. I don't know if that's possible, but as a way to reduce the amount of spaces that they're adding for people to walk from the park down Prouty Way, and we thought that might offer some angle.
Could you speak a little bit about why you chose the number of parking spots that you want to build here?
There are some numbers associated with this. Just basically go over it. We've shown one space for each one of the 15 students and one space per staff.
Where do those numbers come from?
Again, you caught me. I don't know if that's a town regulation.
Well, the town regulation is more than that.
More spaces than that?
Could be, yeah. So you said one per 15 students?
Right, and then one per staff.
And one per staff?
And that includes...
How many students do you have?
62 proposed.
Proposed.
Total 62, so on that calculate, that can't be right, because that would be 4 parking spaces.
5.
How many of your students actually drive to school?
For every 15.
A majority of them. Some of them use the Meeting Waters transportation bus. Some walk, but mostly
Most every student
gets dropped
comes
off.
in a private car.
They do. And they don't, I mean, it's a drop off, it's fairly
Right.
quick.
So you don't need parking for it. You just need a stopping place.
The population is too young to drive.
Yeah, so.
And parents have to go in with them, so they have
Let me ask
to.
another question. On a typical day, how many staff or employees are in the building, or will be when you have the additions?
So, right now we have 30 staff, and at any given time, 20 are in the building. And with the addition, I would imagine we're actually housing other community staff, and that is going to be about 7. So 37 and maybe 28 are in the building at any given time. Half of them are community-based, so they come and go.
So you need, at any given time, how many spaces do you actually need to get by?
I don't know. I mean, my understanding was there was a regulation sort of
About 30?
overseeing that. How many do we have now?
It's listed up there, but to answer Spoon's question, that's what I would have said is around 30 because of the coming and going.
About 30, and how many are actually planned for there?
42
46.
or 46.
The question, Chloe, was how many people
Where's
are
the
going to be there
46?
at one
At any
time.
given time.
I guess where we're driving is that if we can minimise parking, and this is not specific to Winston Pratt, by the way, wherever we can minimise parking
Absolutely.
and blacktop in the community, we're asking for approaches to minimising parking. And even though the regulations may say we don't actually have minimums for parking, you know, thou shalt have and no less than, we do have maximums for parking, and formulas or formulaic calculations.
I think there are minimums also.
Are there minimums?
For some, right?
This thing
Aren't there,
says
Brian?
section 4455 is 1 parking space per teacher and 1 additional space per 6 students is
That's a
required.
max, though. That's a max.
Resulting in 47 spaces.
That is a max.
It's required.
It says required.
Resulting required.
47 spaces.
Anyway,
Can we
let's
hear
go back.
from Brian on this issue?
I just say, do you believe, or do you think there's some way that parking could be slimmed down a bit? Can you see it, that
Yeah,
may be
no,
possible?
I think so, depending on what the guidelines are, if there are no minimums. I mean, I wouldn't narrow down too much, maybe 30, but with,
Yeah, I think the answer is absolutely if the town allows us to do that, yes. Right now, we're building to meet what we thought were the requirements. However, it's not necessarily the need, so.
I'll get to you in 1 second. I just want to hear from the clerk on this, and the administrator. What is the scheme that we're bound by?
There are requirements based on use. So as administrator, I make a determination of use and do that calculation. By that, it does require 47, but the board can waive that consideration if there's a basis for doing so. Actual use is a strong basis if the board finds that less is needed, particularly if it advances other considerations of the board, like stormwater treatment or retention of greenery.
Thank you. You want to, sorry.
We have a section on parking reduction measures.
Can I ask them a question? Are you saying, you guys, when we drew this up, you were proposing 42 because you thought you were meeting or complying with a minimum requirement? And
Correct.
even at that, you were trying to go a little bit below that minimum requirement, right?
Yeah.
But had you not been trying to comply with a arbitrary level, how many would you have had? How many would you have proposed?
We were just convincing about that when you asked the question.
Okay.
We haven't
Give
talked
us a
about
couple
We'll let
minutes to.
you need a
do
couple
that.
minutes?
Yes, please.
Would you folks like to speak during those couple of minutes?
So I guess I don't have an answer to the excess parking. We were thinking Memorial Park would be a very likely spot for staff to be able to park and walk across the street up to the school, which is about 30 paces less. You know, I mean, it's maybe 20 yards, 30 yards, I'll get. It's never used, it's never ever full in the middle of the day. We know this for a fact. It's full in the evenings and on the weekends. I think it's a public parking lot. I just didn't know if that was thought about at all and if that's possible. That's one of our questions. I guess another question is in the design. I'm very curious about the design in terms of the actual building. You're going up with a pitch on the roof. Are you actually building on the left, the original side of the school? Are you going up for offices on that side?
Yeah.
Oh, you are?
Would you like me to answer that now?
Yes, sure.
Go for it.
The intention of the new addition is it to be a two-story, 60 by, the first floor being 60 feet by 60 feet in full. The second story would rise above that, but because of the pitch of the roof, the area on the second floor is only 28 foot, 6 inches wide. The proposal is to encompass the entire existing building and the new addition with a new pitched roof, metal roof, to eliminate the one-story brick flat roof, 1960s era look. And while I have the microphone, 32 spaces would be adequate.
How many staff do you have? 32?
30 right now.
30?
And it would go up to 37 maybe.
And let me just ask one last question. In terms of to put this politically incorrectly, but the delivery of children and the collection of children at the end of the day, whatever you want, the drop-off, perhaps that's a better way of saying it. You have, I mean, there's a kind of, do parents turn up and just throw the kids out?
No.
Or are there spaces where you load in and you park up and drop the kids and then run on out?
Yes, and the kids are young enough that parents have to take them in and transition and settle. So I would say that's a 7 to 10 minute process for kids.
And do all the parents arrive at one time?
No, it's all
so it's
staggered.
staggered. Within the zoning ordinance, it talks about, I mean, in essence, parking spaces, but loading spaces, which is this kind of concept of, you know, turning up, loading your kids in, then loading them out again. How many spaces would you provide, say, for loading in and out? 2, 3, 4?
We have, right now, there's sort of one area that's set for that, and that's 6 spaces plus a handicapped accessible space, and that's mostly adequate. There are a couple times when a parent might have to park in another spot, which is not inconvenient, but, so maybe, 6 or 7.
Where are those on this plan?
Those are on the,
Near the front door?
when you come down Winston Prouty Way, those
They're right there.
spots right there. No, wait.
That's historically what they were, right?
Right there. Is that, how many is that?
So when you said 32 spaces just now, that was an appropriate amount to include those loading spaces or those pick-up, drop-off spaces?
That's what I was thinking, that they're, and on a given morning, 6 or 7, I actually just sort of roughly thought 10 for drop-off, pickup, and then 20 for staff, because staff are coming and going. And so during pickup and drop-off is really, the prime times for that are like 8:30 to 9 and 4 to 4:30.
But then those spaces are vacant for the rest of the day.
That's right.
And technically, not necessary for a good portion of the day.
Right.
So if you can be creative about that in some sense,
Absolutely.
This board will happily work with you to do a reduction.
Okay.
My next question would be, relating exactly to that, is that now there's a new circulation scheme. Okay, we swing around, and as that circulation scheme, because of the addition being adapted to accommodate, I mean, how much can we cut that back and still allow for, you know, the turning radiuses of delivery trucks and fire trucks and all that stuff?
Well, if we lost spaces, I don't think it's going to make a difference in terms of the turning radiuses. All you're doing is...
So you would just pull that little bit back a bit where the...
That's one idea. I mean, I haven't thought, maybe we can do other things to mitigate what's going on.
We are not trying to design it at this point in time, but we're just trying to minimize parking spaces and perhaps put some green space back where, you know, or garden space or tree space where you are losing it right now, which will help, I think may help mitigate some of your neighbours' concerns.
Sure.
And quite honestly, why pay for another 10 spaces of blacktop if you don't need to?
I agree.
We would be excited about that.
Save some bucks.
Did you have more you wanted?
Sorry.
We have met with a couple of realtors also, and it would definitely devalue our property. We've already figured out what percentage, and it's pretty extensive to be looking now at beautiful green space, and then to have that turn to a blacktop. And you know, it definitely would have an impact.
If what I'm going to call the eastern or bottom portion of that lot moved up as a result of the number of parking spaces down, or going down, am I correct that for the most part solves the problem or at least mitigates it? Okay. Can you just say yes? We're being recorded, so it's helpful for the record.
Yeah.
Well, you don't have to say yes, but you got to say something.
No, yeah, we addressed that, and I think we went over that with the group at Brian, and it's great that they're willing, they're flexible. You know, we question
other ideas that they look towards the Austin School and maybe find another source, and that's real estate that's waiting for someone to come in, and I think Chloe sort of answered some of that in terms of, they did look other places. We're just, is there a restriction, is there a height restriction in a residential neighborhood that allows?
They haven't hit it.
Yeah, they haven't, no, so there isn't any. And I think my wife was asking about building a second floor of the existing building rather than add that 60 by 60 out. I don't know if that was ever thought about, but having the original 2-story and then even adding on a portion of that, I don't know if that was talked about.
We talked about, the 2 years of talking included lots and lots of ideas, as I think we discussed, and I think this was the most efficient, easiest way, and again, we went up because we didn't want to spread out. So I think, we've honed down to what we think is the least amount required that will work for our purposes. So that first floor, that new construction is sort of the indoor play space, the conference room, harder to get on the second floor. So I do feel like we vetted many of those ideas.
I think, the proximity to our property line is fairly, as this proposal comes in and is fairly close to our property, and even though they suggested some landscaping, we still don't want to look out and see a row of trees that looks like it's hiding something, and so I think,
Low-level bushes? We're on this topic again, like forsythia or lilacs or something that's not blocking your view entirely, but is some kind of delineation?
Yeah, I mean, the way that the landscaping is that the existing parking lot is here, we're down here, and I think, they had talked about reducing that, but no matter how you cut it, if it comes straight across, it's not a beveled edge, but if they're talking about cutting back the parking lot, that may not even be an issue, but the way it is now is that, we're down here and this is where the parking lot ends, so there's a fair amount of.
I was thinking more about, I understand what you just said, but we have a slight change in circulation pattern, and cars will draw into the front of the school or the facility and then come down and swing around, and it may be that you, for example, in the winter have headlights that kind of sweep across your property in a late afternoon or early morning, and some form of low shrubbery that takes you sort of, so the headlights at least are, what's the word, diffused or screened. You might appreciate that. I don't, or a low level stuff. I'm not suggesting massive.
Yeah, you could. The pictures give a much better image than I can. But that's a great idea.
Which gives us, it's not as if they're going to park and shine into your living room, but they may circulate around and you'll get a.
Another idea, I don't know if it can be worked into the plans. I'm looking at the arrows which show the flow of traffic. And if that were reversed, then as cars, well, maybe it would affect the other neighbor on the other side, I don't know. But if cars turned, well, if it was reversed, it would remove the headlights from cars turning around. They wouldn't go into the other.
We've actually had that discussion yesterday, and we would be supportive of that idea of reversing the flow.
Have you talked to the architect?
Yes. In fact, he's the one who recommended it.
Because there was some resistance initially. I just wanted to make sure that all the safety measures are taken into account, because we thought that was a better idea too.
Yeah,
It also
Charles
prevents,
emailed us yesterday.
it prevents cars crossing on that intersection. If you turn right as you come in, then there's no need to argue about who goes to go next. So the flow would,
Then if you like reverse the crosshatch angle of those spots, then none of them would really be pointing at any of those.
That would solve the light issue, the headlight issue.
That would take the headlight issue away from both the Brewers and the Henrys.
Correct.
we're not traffic specialists though.
No, and
It's
we're not pretending to be either, but it sure makes common sense, so.
Certainly the crossover in that pattern, where you have people coming in and then you have to cross over to get out onto the right side of the road, you'd end up with a stop sign there, which you may not want.
Any other comments?
Would you just, if you trim the 10 spots off this proposed drawing, would you trim them from the, what is that, the south end?
That's actually the south end, yeah. The
Is that
bottom
what
is
you
the
do?
south.
You just kind of
Yeah.
shimmy that south end up 10 spaces worth, basically?
That's
Yeah.
that's what I would do.
Yeah.
As a curve rather than kind of straight lines too, I'll bet, right? You could curve it down, following the existing.
Would-
the end of the parking lot right
So
around
would you
the
keep
building.
the other, what is it, like 6 spaces or 5 and 2 handicapped across, straight off the butt end of the addition there? Would you keep those spaces in that section intact and then just bring this other side up?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's in keeping with what's there now, it's just
Yeah, right.
moving it down a little
Yeah.
bit.
Any other questions from the board?
There is no, currently, there doesn't appear to be any landscaping at all drawn in on that west, is that the west side? Or-
It is the west side.
Yeah, of that parking lot, the side closest to the Henrys and the Brewers. Is there, so, is that where you would be then also talking about some type of coniferous hedging, or?
That's
you know,
proposed
what?
shoulder vegetated slope right there. Very small letters. Right there.
Vegetated.
It's.
Well, that's vegetated slope, that just means grass, right?
That could be grass.
Vegetated
or
slope,
something,
3 to
but-
1, that just means grass.
Oh, 3 to 1
Would
just
there be
means-
some shrubs there or something?
What we had offered earlier was in that location, yes.
Along
Yeah.
this side.
Sure.
One thing I can add is that, if we're gonna keep this wall that we talked about and keep most of this intact, this, with a little trimming, I think this part would probably stay as is. Once we get down here, if we bring this back, you're only probably talking about 30 or 40 feet.
Which is about where the wall is, right? Isn't that about where
Well,
that
the
stone
wall
wall is?
is, doesn't come up on this, but the wall is just up at the edge of where the existing curve, so the wall's ending about right here.
Yeah, you can almost retain it there. Yeah.
So I think most of this will be retained except for the last 30 feet off the edge of this drive.
Right.
Instead of this dropping down 80 feet, we're dropping down 30 feet. And that, I think, very easily enhanced it.
Yeah.
You content, Joe?
That sounds good.
I
Any-
have a quick question, sorry.
No, I keep doing that.
Memorial Park, is that considered municipal parking?
I don't know how that's treated. It is owned by the municipality.
It's owned by the municipality. So the parking at the bottom of the parking, one of the proposals is if you had overflow parking, it's not unreasonable, because it's not so far away, it's 20 feet, 50 feet, 100 feet, to overflow into what is essentially a municipal lot, if we think it's municipal.
I'm not going to speak for Carol.
You're
Just
not
gonna
speak
say,
to Carol?
It's not
you gotta
permitted.
defer to Carol for that.
Carol will,
You may have
We
to
let
do-
Carol use our parking lot a lot.
Oh, you do?
Uh-huh,
Then
4th of
maybe a quid-
July, Winter
It's
Carnival.
called quid pro quo.
And we do direct people to park there for 2 full. If we have a really big meeting sometimes. we
Yeah.
have-
well, you got a
Okay.
little leverage
Yeah.
I think so.
Just so that, let's say you reduce, we ask you to reduce to 30 or 32 spaces, and something happens where you need 40, or 42 or 46, then it's only across the street. And it is municipal rather than private, so you see, you just have to do the negotiation. tough one. I mean.
Yeah.
Thank
Softball
you.
season in a lot of
If I
time.
can make another comment.
Sure.
With that said, there are a number of businesses I know where employees are asked to park quite a ways away and walk to their office location. Schools in the area, I know Academy has parking way over on the side for the teachers, and they make that jaunt all the way across. So I don't think it's unheard of or, out of character to ask that, to propose that idea. Thank you.
Anything else from the board? Anything else from the public?
Just, I said, yeah, I'm Tim Ellis, I live up the street, just a couple of houses. And
Could you
I'd
say
like-
what your address is?
It's 120 Gilbert Street, so it's the Brewers, the Cunningham's, and the next house. So I can look over to their property, and I applaud everything what the project does. I love seeing the kids walk up the street, and it's great. And so I would just like to support the decision of moving that way to reduce the parking. And I think it's a great idea using the municipal or the rec Royal Park parking, because it is rarely used during the day. It's a great creative idea. One thing that came to mind is we were talking about additional employees coming, and just whether or not, I know you guys were saying you're not traffic experts or anything, but there is a lot of traffic on Gilbert Street, and I'm just wondering if that had been addressed at all, just the increase in traffic. It is used quite a lot in the summertime, Memorial Park, and adding more cars to that area would be a concern. Not to stop the project, but maybe on the town side to see if there's a way to reduce the speed of traffic in that area. And you may not be the folks.
We don't
to-
have that authority.
Well, could you pass it on to those folks?
Brian noted in the minutes?
Yes, it will be.
Just because it would be introducing more traffic, and people would just cruise by them quite a bit. So, thank you for your deliberation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, we're reducing the parking lot, I think.
Could you just say?
Oh, I'm Sean Henry, 84 Guilford Street.
84, okay.
To the west of the parking area there. So the parking doesn't really affect our property too much because we already have like the trees and the shrubs. So it's more like the birds that like came through the park. Because the parking lot being like this, if we did expand it that much, it definitely affects our view. But so I think it's good to shorten it a bit. I think that well, it makes me happy and would make my parents happy, the brewers happy too, I'm sure. So that's all I got.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, I got a quick question for you. So you're the property, you can come back, just in case you have to talk. You're the property right on Winston Prouty Drive, the corner property?
Yeah.
So you're the one with the stone wall or the rock wall or the boulder wall?
Yeah.
And there's that landscape there? You've got trees between you and them?
Bushes and
Okay.
yeah, and then there's like where the boulders are, like towards the brewers, there's like 4 big bushes that are like 6 feet high. So right now the parking lot doesn't even come out to like the end of those. So like those would at least cover up the parking lot, at least on our property, for quite a ways too. So
okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
There is that last bit of they planted like 4 or 5 brand new trees probably 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and I know those will probably have to be ripped out, and that'll leave quite a vacant space. Instead of looking at the tips of the trees, we're going to be looking at the new addition. I'd hope that somebody is thinking about trees and.
We'll keep the trees. We're gonna move them.
You're going to keep
Yeah.
the trees?
Oh, yeah. They're too beautiful.
Yeah, they are very nice.
They are. So no, absolutely. We're committed to that.
Okay. Any further things from the board? So at the risk of being overly suggestive here, is there a motion to approve this application provided that the parking lot be reduced to 32 spots, the reduction coming from the south end of the main lot, the direction of traffic reversed, a provision for the installation of electrical conduit, suitable landscaping on the western border of the main lot. Lights that go off at 6 p.m. with motion sensors, conforming with the commercial building energy standard.
With motion sensors?
Yeah, you said that's no problem, right?
They
they
could
be- yeah.
be on, we were gonna put them on a timer.
We're gonna put them on a timer.
Right.
Okay, so then 6 p.m. time off. Was there anything else?
So they're gonna have to be on later than 6 o'clock.
Yeah,
so
we
we-
did that.
Still stuff going on after.
May I just ask what the appropriate times are for the lighting to go on and off?
There's not anything happening in the building later than 9 o'clock ever. And it's not often, you know, maybe 3 times a month, there might be a class or a workshop offered that might go to 9 o'clock.
Okay.
6 is a pretty good, well, the cleaning folks come.
Well, I'm going to ask that the board does not define, or suggest the board does not define the off time.
Okay.
But that there be, they have timers now that go with attached to sunset or whatever. So you could-
Photovoltaic,
Sorry?
photo cell.
Well, no, it just knows what time sunset is because you put in your location. And they're not very expensive, and the electrician, I'm sure, who does this can figure that out. But
Sure.
and if you need them on because you have traffic there at 9 o'clock at night and it's in the middle of winter, then that's totally reasonable. But
Motion
I don't-
sensors too.
Sorry?
The motion sensors would cover that too, right? If there's
They
a
will,
time-
but then they go on at all sorts of times when someone happens to go around there and you don't need them.
And
Which does
if a
happen.
dog crossed the lot
Sorry?
at night, they would come on.
I just say, we would say that they are controlled, it's controlled lighting, and you get the gist.
Yep.
The neighbours will talk to you very quickly if they're
Right.
coming on at midnight and
Absolutely.
and then you will adjust for it.
And we should note that the rationale for the reduced parking is the ability to overflow at Memorial Park, the current use, and mitigating
Mitigate the neighbors' concerns.
the visual effect on adjacent parcels. Brian, am I forgetting anything here?
Yeah, no, it's administrative approval with the support of the chair. You're not going to
Okay.
have to come back to us.
So somebody say so moved.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck with your project.
And this goes to Brian,
Yeah, any questions on the procedure, Brian will walk you through it.
but I mean, as far as.
The revisions will go to Brian. Well done, James. Sorry to be on.
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. Don't worry.
Thanks for sticking it out.
New members, welcome. We still need a motion to adjourn though.
What's that?
We still need a motion to adjourn.
I'll motion. I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Let's go home. Thank you to the new members.